Good evening. It's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint City Council is now called to order in the council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I'm Mayor Jeremy Grimm, presiding. Also present are our City Council President Deb Rule, Councilor Joe Spiro, Justin Dick, Kyle Schreiber, Pam Duquette, and Rick Howarth. Under the city's adopted code of ethics and civility, as the presiding officer, I'm to identify law enforcement in the room. Serving as Sergeant of Arms this evening. Tonight we have Police Chief Corey Kuhn in the back. Thanks, Chief. If everyone would please stand, we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For members of the public in attendance, there are no public hearings on the agenda this evening, so the public comment portion of the meeting, which will open here shortly following announcements and reports, will be the only opportunity for members of the public to comment regarding items on this evening's agenda or on matters not on the agenda that are pertinent to business of the city of Sandpoint. If you wish to speak, you'll need to complete a comment sign-up form and hand it to staff at the back table. I need to report that the agenda was amended earlier today in order to add an executive session under Idaho Code 74-206-1F regarding potential litigation. Because an amendment was made and posted less than 48 hours prior to the meeting per Idaho Code, the amended agenda cannot become effective until the City Council votes to accept it. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to accept the amended agenda and proceed with the amended agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Schreiber, second by Spiro. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Dick?
Yes.
Counselor Duquette?
Yes.
Counselor Rule?
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber?
Yes.
Counselor Howarth?
Yes.
Counselor Spiro?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. Council, additionally, we've had a request from the Public Works Director to take up agenda item 5 earlier in the meeting. This is a consideration to award the Downtown Revitalization Phase 3 professional service contract. Project manager from Welch Comer, the firm that has been recommended for this contract, is scheduled for 2 council meetings this evening and would appreciate the opportunity to introduce himself and his team before he needs to leave for other meetings. Would council be amendable to moving item 5 ahead of the consent calendar directly after public comment? Any council objections to that? Thank you, council members. Moving on to general announcements. Well, winter is here, and just to remind folks, we've got the odd-even restrictions that I assume we'll start enforcing. We might hear something more briefly from department heads in just a moment. Other than that, it's been a busy week. We are working with our engineers, Keller and Associates, and Holly will tell us a little more about that, but trying to navigate funding and sort of the regulations of wastewater treatment with the state DEQ, trying to work on a outcome that will potentially result in a smaller footprint and a lower cost design for our wastewater plant. Beyond that, it's been a pretty standard week. I hope you all had a good holiday and are ready for the last couple weeks of the year. With that, I would invite any council members who have general announcements or reports.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Duquette, you have the floor.
Why, thank you. I do have a quick one. When I was looking through the payables, I noticed people buying batteries, and I just wanted to remind everybody that I put little battery recycle boxes around in case nobody notices. I saw one upstairs yesterday when I was here. So just a reminder that we can recycle the old batteries.
Thank you, Councilwoman Duquette. Any other council general announcements or reports?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schreiber, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, the Urban Forestry Commission held its November meeting on November 21st at 11 a.m. A little different because of the Thanksgiving holiday. We finalized the definition for historical trees that had been sent over to the Arts, Culture, and Historical Preservation Commission for their approval and unanimously passed our commission. We took a presentation on the right-of-way trees on the Cedar Street reconstruction project. I'll probably discuss that a little bit later when it's on the agenda. And then also discuss the outstanding trees of Sandpoint pamphlet. Unanimously agreed to table that discussion until the next meeting, which is going to be December 18th at 3 p.m. because of the Christmas holiday. We did finalize our top 5 priorities for 2026, and those are going to be updating tree ordinance, updating or starting a tree planting plan, presenting a budget analysis and recommendations, updating the outstanding tree pamphlet, and updating the arboricultural manual. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilman Schreider. Just a quick follow-up, if you don't mind. In terms of the heritage tree definition, is it your pleasure to bring that forward once it goes through Arts, Historic, and Culture? Or would you prefer that the mayor's office brings that forward? And you can get back to me, but just give some thought to that.
Okay.
And then regarding the top 5 priorities for all the commissions and committees, I will be consolidating those and bringing those forward for council consideration and absorption in the new year.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other council announcements or reports?
Mr. Mayor,
Council President Rule, you have the floor.
The Pedestrian and Bicycle Committee met on November 13th. They approved their minutes from last meeting. They discussed downtown bike parking and working on adjusting the map with formal versus informal bicycle parking options. There was also discussion on multimodal transportation plan with a brief history of priority pedestrian seats, or I'm sorry, not seats, streets. The committee worked toward incorporating this document into the multimodal transportation plan. Mr. Welker was at the meeting and he inquired about what the highest priorities were, and they will work on advancing that document through. Then there was also new business and recommendations for the Superior Street Gateway. The committee supported angle parking options, robust separated pedestrian and bicycle access. And that was about it.
Thank you, Council President Rule. Any other council announcements or?
I had, excuse me,
Oh, sure.
I had one more thing, Mr.
You-
Mayor.
You have the floor.
I would like to request of the rest of the counselors and ask if we may move item number 7 to the top of the old unfinished business. If anybody, I don't know if we need to vote on adjusting the agenda, but I would like to make a motion if I need to put item number 7 in front of item number 4.
I would second if we need to motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Spiro, you have the floor.
President Rule, is that including in front of number 5 that we decided to move to the front?
No, because I believe that was in front of the consent calendar.
Perfect.
I don't think we need to vote. Any councils have a objection to moving item 4 in front of,
Item 7.
I'm sorry, item 7 in front of item 4? All right, we'll do that, Council President.
Thank you.
Any other council announcements or reports? Excellent. We'll yield the floor to the staffs for some brief staff reports real quickly. Fire Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. How's everybody doing tonight? We get kind of caught up in the day-to-day. I know everybody in emergency services does, especially at this time of year. It just seems like we were just talking how you like to think at the end of the year, everything kind of starts winding down, but it's not. So what we do want to do though is we want to recognize one of our folks that went over 25 years of service later, or just like a month ago, 2 months ago. He was the one that picked this date. So With that, I'd like to ask Captain Amorbieta to come up. Good. So I'm just going to read the letter that we got going for you here to recognize your 25 years of dedicated service. Captain Amorbieta, on behalf of the Sandpoint Fire Department and the City of Sandpoint, it is with great respect and deep appreciation that we recognize and thank you for 25 years of dedicated service to the residents and the visitors of our community. Your commitment, professionalism, unwavering work ethic have not only made a lasting impact on the department, but have also strengthened the safety and resilience of Sandpoint. Over the past 2.5 decades, you have answered the call day or night in every season and under all conditions, provided expert care, mentorship, and leadership in moments that mattered most. Your years of service stand as a powerful example of what it means to be a public servant, and your legacy will continue to inspire current and future members of our department. We're proud to serve alongside you and sincerely thank you for your extraordinary contributions. With heartfelt gratitude, Chief Gilcrease. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Oh, no, you have to. We're gonna take pictures. Awesome. Don't mind my rapping job. It's pretty terrible.
Look out.
25 years is a long time, but it's a long time to open that box too. Sweet. Thank you. You go. Awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
All right.
Photo op? Yeah, we'll photo op. Wait. Oh, it's. Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, you good? All right. Thank
We
you.
didn't get to see what you got.
Oh, sorry. Got away.
Whoa, nice.
Thank you. And thank you.
Yep.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Chief, how's everything else going out there? Any winter fire warnings or heating or carbon monoxide?
I would just say, make sure that if you haven't gotten your stovepipe already cleaned out, if you're using wood burn stoves, make sure you get that taken care of. Not a bad time to start checking all smoke detectors, things like that as well. We have had a couple of requests for people that came by and wanted us to give them smoke detectors. We have a program for that. We don't give them out. We just make arrangements to come and do the install for them. The reason is that over my career, it's happened twice where we've given them out, and then like 4 months later had a medical call at that address, walked in and found the smoke detector sitting on the counter, still in the box that we gave it to them. So that's just not our practice anymore, but we do have that available if people need it.
Chief, sorry to catch you off guard here.
Nope.
I spent almost an hour yesterday being interviewed by a gentleman who's doing some kind of consulting analysis for Selkirk and Northside and maybe even EMS. If you don't, just say so, that's fine. But do you have the ability to just give myself and the council sort of a macro view of what's happening with the other districts? Because he was asking a lot of questions about Sandpoint and things
Yeah, I
like that.
believe it's, I know that Selkirk is going through a needs assessment right now, and they brought in a consultant to do that. Once you identify the needs, then you can identify the ask. So the ask that the districts have been going for a levy. And I think this just kind of helps bolster their ask when they go to the polls the next time they decide to go for the levy. I think that just kind of helps them, this is exactly what we're asking for, kind of a thing out there. EMS is doing one as well. Theirs is not a needs assessment so much of it as strategic planning. They have a separate consultant. It's not the same person. So I'm not sure which one you talked to.
Okay, this guy was out of Wisconsin.
Tim or Jim or something. Yeah,
Tim.
I think that was Selkirk.
Right.
I think he was the one.
And do you briefly, I mean, I know you go to the meetings, have the ability to sort of summarize? Can you summarize what's happening with EMS in the county right now? Or is that better left for an email, maybe?
EMS in the county, I mean, as far as I know, the EMS they've been working pretty diligently with the county to kind of separate them, silo them away from the county. Where they are in that process, I'm not positive.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chief. Any council questions for the chief? Thanks, Chief.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Holly, Public Works Director Holly Ellis, maybe just a quick update on all the fun things happening in Public Works? Water treatment, sewer, streets.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. An update on our wastewater treatment plant. Our next step is funding. So we're actively working, we're having conversations with DEQ in alignment with our SRF funding that we were offered. So we're having conversations with them on pursuing that funding. We have an application due at the end of year to support that. We're also having some early preliminary value engineering conversations with them, exploring auxiliary treatment alternatives. Also some alternatives that we might have secondary clarifiers, really high level getting DEQ's buy off on some of these alternatives before we entered into permit negotiations with them. Jumping over to our streets, we had one street paving project this year, which was Pine Street. This was an overlay envisioned between Boyer and Division Street. Winter did set in. We were able to get all the curb and gutter improvements that were needed along that corridor. There is a positive side to it, which is that new asphalt won't have a winter beating right off the bat. Interstate is still contracted to do that work. They'll be back in the spring when the weather allows to do that mill and overlay along that corridor. Snow has arrived. Just a reminder, when we see over 2 inches of snow, you will see our snow plows out and about. That's really when we ask the public to very seriously observe that odd side of the street, no parking ordinance during the winter months.
Any question for Public Works Director Ellis?
I would just like to compliment her on her fast work with a sinkhole that opened up today in one of our city streets.
We did have a sinkhole. I can give an update on that as well. It's part of an earlier issue we had. We have a sewer main, and it's an old concrete sewer main that's starting to have the joints separate, allowing soils to infiltrate. So our crews came out this summer, and they were able to do point repairs where they dug down, exposed the pipe, and repaired one portion of the main. It's the entire main that we need to work on. So we actively have Century West Engineering providing a design to slip line that main. And again, they'll come back when the weather allows to provide a permanent fix. Unfortunately, this winter, we might be chasing more point repairs, but hopefully this is the last one and it gets buttoned up tomorrow.
And Holly, for the benefit of the council, can you describe the street or?
Oh, sorry, this is Olive Street, right at Birch. So this is South Sandpoint.
Excellent. Any other questions for the Public Works Director?
Well, I had one more comment. Just for levity's sake, it's actually at the end of my driveway. So if it really opens up, I get to back right into it. I just asked the Public Works guys to make sure it didn't take my house. They assured me it wouldn't.
The main does not go into your house, so you should be all right.
Excellent. I'm glad you're happy with the level of service our Public Works is providing, Council President.
I believe they would have provided it for anybody.
Thank you, Holly. Appreciate it. Keep up the great work, and thanks for all the hard work. Planning Community Development Director Jason Welker.
Good evening, Council. I have 3 updates for you tonight, all of them parks related. The first is an announcement of our upcoming community workshop that was requested by this council on November 5th. We will be hosting our community workshop to envision potential alternatives for the RV park site on December 13th. That's a Saturday morning at 9:30. That's going to take place at the James E. Russell Sports Center Community Room. The workshop will include an introduction to the RV park site, including its history, the vision for the site, and the 2020 Parks Master Plan, the decision to pursue grant funding for the RV park improvements, and the recent request to pause the RV park improvements by the Averill Hospitality Group. We will then break out into table groups of which parks commissioners, who are going to help facilitate this workshop, will facilitate small group discussions and a visioning exercise. Following table group discussions, we will come back together to share what was discussed and see if we can come to a larger group consensus on what the best use for the RV park site is for the community. In the week prior to the workshop, a survey will be distributed that will allow a broader selection of community members to weigh in on their desired use for the site. In January, park staff will assemble and present survey and workshop results to council and seek a decision on whether to proceed with the RV park improvements or to pursue an alternative options for the site, which may or may not include financial support for implementation and ongoing revenue generation from the Averils. So that's update number 1. Update number 2, I'd like to invite you all and the mayor to a celebration on August 12th, the day before the community workshop in the same location.
December 12th.
What did I say?
August. It's okay.
It's because I got Austin here. And actually wrote August 12th. Go figure. I'm dreaming of summer right now, I think. On December 12th, that's Friday, in the same location at 11:30, we're going to be hosting a celebration of the career of Austin Hull. Austin has been our parks supervisor for over 2 decades now, and he has worked for the city for 28 years. I figured he has worked under 7 mayors and 14 different city councils. He has supervised over 100 parks employees in his time at the city and overseen improvements to and maintenance of city parks, public rights-of-way, downtown streets for almost 30 years. Austin is a treasure trove of knowledge, experiences, and stories, and he will be dearly missed by all who have worked with him. We are thrilled to have Colton Fullwiller, who joined the city a little over a year ago, moving into the Parks, Building, and Grounds supervisor position starting next week. He's been training under Austin for several weeks already. Colton's a very capable and extremely personable individual. If you haven't had the chance to meet him, you will soon. So I'd love to have any of you who can join us at 11:30 on Friday. Next Friday, there will be some former city employees there who have already been invited, who worked with Austin for several years. 28 years. Austin's an amazing guy. We're going to miss him. His last day of work is December 26th.
Some big shoes to fill.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the amount of knowledge. He knows where literally all the pipes are buried.
And bones.
And dead bodies. Finally, I want to give you an update. It's a new month. We have new figures about use at the James E. Russell Sports Center. November marked a major milestone at the Sports Center. The facility surpassed $17,000 in revenue, by far its highest monthly revenue to date. Membership surpassed 450 by the end of the month, nearly half of whom are monthly and annual members. The other half are guest members who have registered in our system, and they are ones who are currently paying the $15 daily play fee. On Monday this week, we kicked off our Winter Futsal League. If you don't know what futsal is, it's an indoor version of soccer. 4 nights a week, we're going to have 20 junior youth soccer players practicing in there from 3 to 5 p.m. That's kind of a slow time for tennis and pickleball, so it works really well. I encourage you to drop by after school someday in the next 10 weeks because that program goes into January and I think early February. Multiple youth and adult tennis and pickleball programs have been fully booked for the last couple months. And court reservations are increasingly difficult to make. They're basically 3 or 4 days out. If you want to find an open court time now, you need to book about 3 or 4 days ahead of time. We expect that to get better / worse, depending on your perspective. But that really is what is going to get more of these guest members to sign up for those monthly memberships, because guest members cannot make reservations. So they can look at what times are available, but then they just have to show up and hope that they get a court. So we're seeing more and more people switch over to that monthly membership option or annual membership option. So I really want to thank Ryan and his team. They deserve all the credit over there. They're doing an awesome monthly newsletter that's being pushed out, highlighting all the activities going on, all the programs. So again, if you haven't had a chance to check out the Sports Center, any members of the public, it's free to come in and go for a walk around our walking track any time of the day. And you can always check out a pickleball paddle or tennis equipment for free with your drop-in play fee. So come try it out. It's a great atmosphere in there. The weather's always perfect inside at the James E. Russell Sports Center. So that's all I have for you.
Director Welker, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Job well done. It was about a year ago. We opened that facility. We had some really challenging first few months. We've never done this before. Not many communities operate facilities, communities of our size. I can't say enough about Ryan and what you and the group down there have done. And that's astounding. So thank you so much, sincerely, for all the hard work and success you're having down there.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have
Councilwoman Duquette, you have the floor. Go ahead.
2 questions. The newsletter, how do you get that?
One of our employees over there, we have 2 employees who are, their title is Member Services Specialist. So they get paid a little bit more than the regular front desk staff. And one of the responsibilities of one of those employees is to write our monthly newsletter. She's really good in Canva, so she creates a cool graphic design. It's a 2-page newsletter that goes out pictures, QR codes to upcoming programs and things like that.
Where do you get it? How does it go out?
It's posted to the Parks and Rec Facebook page, and it goes out to all 450 members via email at the beginning of the month. So it's a member newsletter, but we do push it out on social media as well.
Okay. And then you mentioned that for the workshop, you said Averill asked for a pause on the RV park. I thought the reason we were doing it was because some council members decided they wanted to talk about it. You said that.
True.
That Averill asked for a pause.
Yeah, the October 26th, I think, letter that asked for council to reconsider the use of the RV park site. That's what I was referring to there.
Okay, it's not actually what they said, but.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Any
Just want-
questions for Director Welker? Are you all done, Councilman?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Welker? No? Thanks, Jason. Chief, Corey, you good with any updates, things to be concerned about? Any questions for the police chief? Excellent. And Sarah just does her work, and Cheryl is just killing contracts and policy, so good. We'll move on then. Next, we will proceed with the general public comment portion of the meeting. If you wish to speak and haven't yet completed a sign-up form, please do so and hand it to the staff member at the back of the room. Purpose of general comment time is to allow members of the public in attendance to address the mayor and council regarding items included on this evening's agenda under the consent calendar or old or new business. For the purpose of general public forum, you are also welcome to comment on any topic pertinent to the business of the city of Sandpoint, not included on the agenda and not anticipated or scheduled for future public hearings. Please note that the council cannot take testimony on any planning or land use related matter outside of official public hearing. I'd like to make everyone aware, the city does have a policy on public meeting decorum. These rules are posted just outside the chamber entry doors. In summary, I would ask that everyone please be pleasant and respectful, not make derogatory statements about others, including city staff, not be disorderly or disruptive, no calling out, clapping, or holding up signs. Public comment time is for comment only, no questions or debate. You are welcome to contact me during regular business hours if you have any questions or concerns. This is the only general public comment time that will be offered this evening. Those in attending remotely who wish to speak may raise their hand on Zoom at this time. Looks like we have 9 folks. When it's your turn to speak, please state your name and whether you reside in the city of Sandpoint city limits. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes, and there's no gifting of time to other speakers. With that, Madam Clerk or Deputy Clerk, please call our first speaker.
Terry Pardini.
Good evening, Terry.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Good to see you again. I'm here to speak on just a couple matters. One is the position that you're considering tonight, the administrative position. I think that probably all of you are aware, but I'll remind you that you ran on a platform to eliminate that position and stated how the work needed to be done, put back to department heads and to you, and that this would be better management for our city. And a lot of us voters bought into that because we felt the same way. So I'm really curious to hear tonight how that's changed and why that plan doesn't work. If the newspaper article is correct, it said something to the effect that the mayor no longer wanted to work as many hours as he had. And so I read another article that said there is no requirement for mayors spending time in the office. They literally don't even have to come in. So first of all, I don't know how that gets changed, but I think that's something that should be addressed. I think there should be at least some expectation in writing for our mayor and our officials. I don't know if it goes to other department heads either, but I've never actually, I worked for the school district for 31 years. There's always an expectation that's in writing, if not a minimum, maximum hours. So that's something I'd like to see the council or whoever it is that works on that, legal, I don't know, put something together. Because to me, that's kind of ridiculous. Because you could get a mayor that never comes in and there's nothing you can do except for wait to vote him out, I guess. The second subject is not on here, but it's really bothered me is there used to be this great app called Engage Sandpoint, and people could go into that and ask a question of the city. They could report, which I often did. I walk around town all the time. I would report cars that were consistently parking across the sidewalk or whatever. And I always got an answer and I always got a response. Now it's simply a place to talk to your neighbors. Nobody responds. So I'm wondering, do you always have to call City Hall and talk to someone? Can you not just, I'm wondering what the process is now since Engage Sandpoint is still up, but it really doesn't do anything. And that's it. Thanks for your time and
Thank you, Terry. And just if you leave your contact information, I will get back to you. We have a great contact us complaint form or issue form.
Great.
Engage Sandpoint was costing us about $10,000 a year. So it was a cost saving things.
We have Chase Youngdahl.
Good evening, Chase.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Chase Youngdahl, City of Sandpoint resident. I'm coming before you this evening on the topic of the city administrator position. I think it's pretty clear that there's still a hangover within the community from what we had experienced previously. You could repackage the position any which way. You could guardrail it to death. The reality is you're not going to compensate an individual upwards of $300,000 a year to just kind of sit around and supervise. So give the strong mayor model a chance, perhaps budget for and consider a salary maybe close to what our county commissioners make to serve in kind of that C-suite type executive function within the county department head structure. And in my opinion, it works well. And if the community is dissatisfied with the direction of the mayor or the mayor's priorities, there's an opportunity to go to the ballot box and change it every 4 years. Discontent with the city administrator, unelected bureaucrat position, it's not that straightforward. I mean, yeah, technically it can be, changed through the election process in an underhand way, but it takes political will from both the executive and legislative branch at the same time. So there's a golden opportunity, in my opinion, to get this right. So I hope that you seize that opportunity. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Chase. Appreciate your comments.
Rebecca Holland.
Good evening, Rebecca.
Good evening, Mayor. Rebecca Holland for the record, Council, hi. Rebecca Holland for the record, I live in Sully Valley and I call Sandpoint my hometown. This is really quite a packed agenda and it's almost near impossible for a citizen to comment in 3 minutes. So I always like to just mention that wouldn't it be fair if we were doing it like we did with Mayor Logan and Mayor Miller, is we would have open comment and then we'd also have time to talk right after an item. This works for me because this thing has been scrambled around so many different times, but here we are, we're going straight to downtown revitalization when you guys take over. And it seems that appears that the cart came before the horse because today Sura was voting on funding. And to that, I always want to go, who's in charge here? This is a council decision first comes before the funding. And to me, it just kind of echoes a bit of how we had a previous administration, the last one, do things. This design work on this deal design work. It includes GGLO, which was rejected by the community when they won the contest and the blue thread or whatever. And I think the bike design part of that is just awful. I was pleased to hear Deb mention that the bike PED committee is revisiting the route system that was established years ago, and been ignored. So I'm glad to see that getting on board. I could talk for 10 minutes about why that malfunction junction is the worst place in the world to be running everybody and their bikes up to, but I think you know that. And that's puts part of this downtown revitalization plan. Also, the idea of dealing with stormwater. I think that's how you get Sura in on this whole deal. But the stormwater issue, you know where that needs to be handled, right there down at Sand Creek. Mm-hmm. Why are you dealing with it? What's going to happen between Pine and Church when, that whole system and that land down at Fireman's Landing was bought how many years ago? 2019 is what I think in my mind. That's where a ceremony should be going. That's where design work should be going. That's where your staff should be working. And this whole idea of revitalizing that section of downtown, you can walk right outside of downtown over to Cedar, down Cedar, 2 blocks out, and you'll find much bigger cracks in the sidewalk. There's nothing really that bad about going down there. I read the slum plan or the slum report. I mean, the word slum is right there, where you're evaluating the buildings and the cracks and everything. It was over the top. That whole thing needs to be shelved. I know there's a lot of work that went into it, but it needs to be shelved, and the community would we were elected, Mayor, you were elected because you cared about water quality issues. And the stormwater quality issue needs to be addressed way before this other. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
I'm
Ms.
over.
Holland. And I would encourage you to contact me, and I can fill you in on the future plans and funding for stormwater at Fireman's Landing.
Great. Thank you.
Jane Fritz.
Jean, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Mr. Mayor. Thank you and council. Got to do this fast. First of all, I want to thank you for your letter. I had a couple of deaths to deal with, so that's why you haven't heard from me. But I'm here to talk about trees. I've lived in this county for 46 years as an adult, half of those years as a Sandpoint city resident. I'm presently right outside the city limits on Pine Street. I came to the October urban forestry meeting because I'm very concerned about 2 trees on the STCU property that were, well, they're the 2 of the most incredible trees we've had in Sandpoint over the years. And because of city actions from our former city administrator, there was sidewalks put in and pavement made so that the trees are dying. And I contacted STCU's facilities manager, David Koch, who was very willing to come to Sandpoint on a little field trip, have a chance to talk to a certified arborist about this, what could be done with the big maple tree, which was a heritage tree and beloved in this community. Watching it slowly die has been so hard. And then the mountain ash tree as well. So anyway, I want to encourage, I can communicate with you about his contact information, but I think it's really important that he meet with someone like Paige Belfry, who is certified, and they'll bring up a couple of their staff people. So that's one thing. But it also reflects on what's happening in Farman Park. The Farman Park trees are in really bad shape. They're starting to die as well. In fact, one of the trees right across the street. And can I give you these to give? There's one of, this is the big tree. And then this is another angle, and there's the mountain ash. But right across the street from it is losing bark, and it's because of the compaction. So I'd like to ask a moratorium on the farmer's market being there next year. And I've already talked to the manager there about finding another place. There's just too many people. And now we have concerts. We're going to lose every tree in that park. And I don't know if that's a good idea. The other things I wanted to just bring up is the apartments on on Church Street, the new, whatever it's supposed to be called, Farman, whatever. They have cut roots of those big trees. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm also going to give you a couple copies of this because I am a writer and podcaster, and our last podcast was all about trees. And I actually have a picture of that maple. And so I encourage you to read what I wrote about that. And
if you could just wrap it up, Jane.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm also here because of the Cedar Street work and the silver maple there. And there's also 3 mature cottonwoods just past the silver maple that are eagle trees and osprey trees because I monitor that nest for a vista. So you need to leave those trees alone, all of them.
Thank you, Jane, so much. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
the only other thing I wanted to say was a vista is, mutilating our beautiful trees in this town, and I'd like to see the city do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Mr. Mayor, we do have Tish Litvin on Zoom.
Tish, can you hear us? Hello, Tish. If you can hear us, go
Wait.
ahead and speak.
Me now?
We can. How are you, Tish?
Hey. Hi, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Hey, I just wanted to comment on two items tonight. One is the Odd Street parking in town. I'm a city resident. And the other is the RV park. As far as the Odd Street parking goes, I actually live on the odd side of the street in Sandpoint. And therefore, my parking is not available to me in the winter months. And I just was actually hoping that maybe the city could consider alternating that from year to year. Berms get created and access to my sidewalk, to my house becomes limited due to the amount of snow that can be pushed in that direction. So, this was always an alternating situation in the past, and perhaps we could go back to that in the future to allow the odd side residents to get a break every once in a while. So please consider that. And then secondly, the RV park. I know it's up for discussion come the 13th. I will not be available to attend that, but I just hope that thought is given to the fact that if we lose the RV park and the revenue that gets generated from that, I'd really like to know how that lost revenue will be generated elsewhere, and hopefully that won't be a burden placed upon city beach users and parking fees. So, I'm not sure what the dollar amount is for that RV park. I know the maintenance is minimal, as was discussed at the one of the past city council meetings. So anyhow, just those two things have come to mind to me tonight as I'm watching this via Zoom, and I hope that they can be both given some consideration in the future. Thank you.
Trish, thanks so much. And the RV park revenue is somewhere between 80 and projected maybe $150,000. But thanks for your comments. All right. Any other public comment, Madam Deputy Clerk?
Not at this time.
Excellent. That will conclude the general public comment portion of the meeting. As agreed, next we will take up item number 5, a resolution proposing to award professional service contract to Welch Comer and Associates LLC for downtown revitalization phase 3 design services. I will now yield the floor to Project Manager Eric Bush and our consultants who are joining us online.
Good evening, councilors. Eric Bush, Project Manager, City Forester. I'm going to get my screen shared here, and I just wanted to kind of turn it over to Matt Gillis, who has a few minutes to join us. I think he's on the screen. And Matt just wanted to kind of introduce himself. He's the Vice President of Welch Comer Engineers, and I think some of you have probably met Matt on previous projects that they've worked on. But Matt, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate the time. First of all, good evening, Mayor, Council. I do appreciate you being flexible, and I apologize for being double booked. Also, thank you for the selection. Our team is genuinely excited about this project. Can't wait to get started, and very much looking forward to working with you, your steering committees, and the public. The staff and I have done a lot of work refining the scope. I'm happy to answer any questions. They did a very good job conveying to what I understand is the wishes of the council. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent.
And councilors, apologies, since Matt was on a little bit of a time crunch. I've got a presentation that we'll be getting into after, but we wanted to make sure Matt had a few minutes to speak and just introduce himself.
Excellent. And Matt, do you have time to wait through the presentation? Does that conflict with your meeting?
Well, unfortunately, Mayor, I have a hard out at 6:30, but I'd be happy to stay up till then.
Council, any questions for Mr. Gillis at this time? I know it's early on and we've got a long process to go through on this project, but Any questions for Mr. Gillis? And just for any perception of conflict of interest, I think everyone knows I do land use consulting development work. One of my clients does use Welch Comer as their engineering company, and I've worked with Mr. Gillis in the city of Priest River. They represent Priest River. I have no financial conflict or any interest in any way with this contract or proposal. Thanks, Matt. Eric, why don't you take it away?
Okay, my screen's back up here. So in August of this year, we published the RFQ for selection of design services, a company for design services for the downtown Phase 3 project. And throughout that selection, SOQs were received on September 12th. And throughout the state code defined selection process, Welch Comer was selected as the engineer to do the design work on this project. So let me jump back a little bit. I'll give you a quick background. Phase 1 along Cedar Street, downtown revitalization Phase 1 was completed in 2018 from 5th Avenue to 1st along Cedar. Phase 2 was completed in 2020. That picked up where Phase 1 ended at Cedar and went along 1st Avenue to Church Street. And Phase 3, our intention for design and construction is from Church Street, where Phase 2 ended, to Lake Street. And as if you reviewed the packet and Welch Comer's proposed design, there's some additional work in there to get 30% design. That's conceptual design from Lake Street to Superior Street, including intersection improvements at Superior Street. And part of the reason we wanted to have that component included in this contract is it allows us to, one, have a picture and continuity for our design in the whole corridor, but two, it allows us to go after funding opportunities. There's potential for additional grant opportunities and various other funding sources. And when you have a design in the works, it shows to whatever organization has grant funding available or funding available generally that you kind of have a stake in the game. You've already put some work into the project. You've already shown, this is kind of what we intend to do from a conceptual perspective. So we thought it necessary and important to include that to kind of pick up the whole 1st Avenue corridor down to Superior. So just to kind of orient you a little bit, the map on the screen in purple there is where Phase 1 occurred. In red to the right of there is where Phase 2 occurred. This is Cedar along kind of the top of your screen, and then 1st Avenue on the right side of the screen. And then Phase 3 picks up at Church Street, right where my cursor is. And our intention for design and construction to 100%, as I said a minute ago, is down to Lake Street, down here. And then the 30% is this dash section down to Superior, where the circle is. That would include intersection improvements at Superior and 1st. So general guidance for the project. These are council adopted reports and master plans. And it's the kind of standard plans we as Public Works reference throughout lots of the projects we're discussing and presenting to council. The Downtown Streets Plan and Design Guide, Multimodal Transportation Plan, the Downtown Waterfront Visioning Final Report, our Water System Master Plan, and Collection System Master Plan. These are, obviously our general guiding documents for any project, and that includes the Phase 3. So scope of work, we've got a number of items in here. First, intersection improvements. So Bridge Street and 1st Avenue, that's of course the entrance, how you get over to City Beach. Pine Street and 1st Avenue, 1 block south of there. And then all the way down at Superior and 1st Avenue, this is the conceptual piece, the 30% design piece. Beyond just intersection improvements, there's general streetscape and infrastructure improvements. Our intent is to pretty much have the same aesthetic model and structure that we had in Phase 1 and Phase 2 with some design and material improvements, kind of lessons learned from things that that needed to be tweaked from phase one and phase two. So not wholesale changes, just modifications and improvements. But beyond that, looking at some traffic calming measures, and this kind of jives with the intersection improvements, looking at pedestrian and bicycle connectivity generally, undergrounding the overhead utilities. So those are the utilities that are on poles right now, primarily power and fiber. And water main reconstruction, that would be under First Avenue. Stormwater treatment, and this is only in the First Avenue corridor, so it's not including outfalls to Sand Creek. That would come at a later time. General street trees and landscaping, and then street parking improvements would be included in this scope. So general kind of project schedule. This is an aggressive project schedule. If you look on the kind of right hand of your of the page here, we intend to be under construction this time next year. So there's a lot of work to be done on the design side between now and then, and a lot of community input together between now and then. But generally, if council chooses to award this contract tonight, we begin public input right away. The orange squares in there are technical advisory group meetings, and the technical advisory group, we're kind of finalizing the members of that group right now, and ultimately Mayor Grimm would be appointing those members. But the members are a handful of staff, internal staff, a representative from each citizen committee commission. Those have already all been voted on by the respective committees, commissions. And then various community members. So we're trying to get a member from the Downtown Business Association, the Chamber of Commerce, and then a member of a local delivery service, or someone who otherwise drives a large vehicle, perhaps Spot. So that our intersection and traffic improvements make sure we're accommodating, larger vehicles, not trucks, but larger vehicles that, would be, perhaps delivering packages and the like to downtown. We've got one community open house slated somewhere after 90% completion of drawings, which we expect in March, and various 3 technical advisory group meetings. And all of this is kind of pending this item that I'm circling with my cursor here, the public involvement plan that is within Welsh Comer's scope of work, and one of their sub-consultants who is, they're kind of the public involvement experts that will be developing this plan and advising us on, do we need additional meetings? Do we need additional open houses? And of course, that is with the coordination with City Council. So general funding sources, our general fund, and that's SURA funding, and then our water fund for the water main replacement project. So what we're looking at here, and this is pretty much the same drawing map that I had up a few slides ago, but on the overall contract amount that was included in your packet, from Church Street to Lake Street, the fee included is on your screen there at $627,800. And then the fee for south of Lake Street, from Lake Street to Superior, is $113,900, and that is to 30% design. And the total design cost is in blue on the right-hand side of the screen there. So I just wanted to kind of clarify the kind of breakdown of where those funds would be going. And that's inclusive of all of the scope items and the public involvement piece that Welsh Comer's subcontractor will be working on later on. So with that said, I've got the recommendation on your screen. I threw a lot of information at you very briefly, or very quickly. I was trying to go through that quickly just in case we have 6 minutes or so with Matt still. And I wanted to give council an opportunity to ask any questions, of course, of me and Holly and Matt, while we still have Matt on the call with us.
Thank you very much, Eric. Council members, before we open this up, I just want to say one of the reasons I was on the selection committee for this engineering design group, they have done some of the most impressive public outreach I've seen for public projects like this. So robust, so engaged, and I think holding true to my word, I want this to be a project that takes into consideration every concern and tries to come to a consensus on a design, including the council. So with that, council, any questions for Eric, Holly, or Mr. Gillis?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilman Schreiber, you have the floor.
on the subject that you were just speaking on, that graph that I saw didn't show the public workshop until after 90% design. Is there any major changes to be expected after we've reached 90% design?
Councilman Schreiber, to kind of respond to that or address that, that's part of what we intend the technical advisory group to be a component of. So the members of the technical advisory group are committees, commissions, and the other members. We intend for those members to, and those meetings to be providing, feedback on the design throughout the phases. So our first meeting would be, later this month or early in January, and then our second sometime between February and March. So our intention is to get a lot of that feedback during those meetings. But with that said, if council would like, we can certainly look to have an additional open house or move the current scheduled open house up in that timeline.
Yeah, I think that, in the past, we've seen that projects that go to public comment at 90% design is more of a presentation of the work that's been done rather than actually giving people meaningful opportunity to weigh in on it. So in the spirit of what the mayor just said, I would like to see the general public have an opportunity to weigh in sooner. And, if tonight is their only night to weigh in, then that makes me a little uncomfortable approving this contract.
Understood, and we could look to move that meeting to about February after the completion of 30% design, which is a good time to get some of that feedback.
Thank you.
Any other council questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Duquette, you have the floor.
while Mr. Gillis is here, I had the same kind of questions about when in the meetings can the design be changed? Because I never heard or saw anything about 90%. Your design schedule in our packet isn't quite the same, right? Did you change, you updated this?
I apologize if there's differences. I believe the design schedule in your packet is quite a bit more robust. It has a lot more kind of milestones in it. And I simplified it for the purposes of this presentation, just what's in front of you right now. So the screen was somewhat readable.
Okay, the milestones are what I was alluding to, more milestones. And I see that it's supposed to have already happened, and I know we pushed off until this meeting. But I would like to see a lot also of public input along the way and ability to change design. And I will point out, because I know other people will probably mention the waterfront design competition. And I spoke with you two the other day, and thank you for your time for giving me the questions I had. We can change. If we don't like anything out of that.
May I jump in and answer?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I think part of the reason the contractor or the contract is structured the way it is so we do have some flexibility on this transition from the work that's been done in the past to this project. So instead of jumping right into design and just going, we've got a ground truth phase. We'll call it a concept design, where we can think, do we stay the course? What changes do we need to make? And so there'll be a lot of interaction that happens in the first third of this project that'll really shape the design. Does that help?
Yes. I just wanted the public to know that we aren't necessarily going by ideas in that design report, because we get to say, no, maybe we don't like that. And I want people to know that before.
Councilwoman Duquette, in one of the hopefully many future times we agree, I agree concurrently and feel very similar. So.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just add on to Matt Gillis and his comment, very specifically early on, before we start creating plans, we'll bring to council and the public a basis of design report. It's text, it's black and white words to make sure before we continue, spend time and effort on design and plans and all that money, that we get it right early on. So we've got that preliminary basis of design report that we'll bring forward. And then we also have that public involvement plan that we'll bring for once it's developed, so that we can
Thank you.
have the right involvement.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may briefly, Councilor Duquette, this slide that has the, kind of series of 5 different plans that are design guidance, as the top of the slide says, it's one of 5. And these are, documents that, of course, council has seen and approved or accepted in previous times. And that's our starting point. And from there, we're on things are
Stormwater, you're referencing the 2016 stormwater facility plan, and I know that's pretty outdated, and we're going to have to update when the census hits us at 10,000 anyway. So I just, and I did mention that before to Holly. She told me that that was all going to be taken into consideration because the stormwater into Sand Creek is a big issue for sure.
It is, and our plan for this is, unfortunately, we don't have funding under this phase to reconstruct the outfalls into Sand Creek. But what we can do is set ourselves up for that future, MS4 compliance that will, like Sandpoint, will be required likely after 2030 when we've exceeded 10,000 in population. But excuse me, our intent is to for our stormwater improvements in this phase to not have to be redone at that time. So it's all in service of that future.
Perfect. Thank you. Somebody else can have some time.
Thank you, Council President or Councilwoman Duquette. Any other council questions before we go back? It looks like Councilman Trevor wants to. Let's give everyone a first shot.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Howarth.
Hi, Eric. 2 questions. One for my information, but maybe for the public's as well. If you look at our sequencing of the downtown revitalization, phase 1 was 2018, phase 2 was 2020. 5 or 6 years later, we're getting to phase 3. And then we're going to have a phase 4 that eventually might take it from Lake to Superior. Can you give us an answer of what is the overall timing? Why is this a 5 or 6 year delay from the end of phase 2? When do we think we'll do phase 4? And then my second part of that question is, why aren't we doing, why doesn't phase 3 go all the way to Superior? I know you have the design part of it, but why don't we just finish it all in one last? What are the constraints that are keeping us from doing those sorts of things?
A budget primarily. We would, at least I would, and I think Holly and Mayor Grimm would share this opinion that if we had budget available to go ahead and get all the way down to Superior, that would be everyone's preference. Unfortunately, we don't. And part of our timeline with this project right now is our SURA funding. SURA, as an agency, sunsets, their funding sunsets in 2029. So we have to get this project to utilize that funding, underway now. As far as the delay between phase 2 and phase 3, I started with the city in 2022, so I can't speak to what happened prior to then. But some of it was related to, limited staffing. We had a large project workload and just not enough staff to do all of the projects we had. And there was also some kind of delay at probably about the time I started here into about a year later with respect to the downtown design competition. They, at the time, the city administrator and mayor wanted to wait on that to be completed prior to initiating phase 3.
And maybe one follow on that you brought to mind. You said we're limited by funding, and I get that. But yet we're going to do the design for phase 4 without knowing where the future budget is going to come for that. So Is that wise in your mind to go do that design, not knowing where we're going to get the construction dollars?
I don't think it would be wise if we were taking that design to 100%. But at 30%, I think the conceptual design gives us, as I described earlier in the presentation, gives us the opportunity to go after some of that funding that may be out there via grants or other sources. It's of course, a potential risk, but it's in my mind a worthy risk. And in my career, having a conceptual design in a project like this can really make a future grant application a lot more attractive for the folks that are funding it.
And Councilman Howard, if I can just weigh in a little bit on that too. There's a couple of other components. The first, if you peruse the urban renewal agenda from yesterday morning, in the downtown district, and I really thank Eric Paul, our chairman, he projected collections last year of $1,060,000. The collections actually came in at $1.2 million. So we collected about $200,000 more than projected. A lot of that is thanks to the investment down at the Seasons, Building Pad 8, and those are coming online. Those add increment. Over the life of Sura, if this, same level of collections come in, which it should, unless tax valuations drop tremendously, we will actually collect roughly $1 million more than projected, because Eric Paul is projected, he's a banker, very conservatively. So at this time, based on what everything's looking like in the downtown district, we will probably have somewhere around $6 million to spend. And this primes us well for both completing what you're calling phase 4. And it's my hope that we can put some of that excess SURA money unallocated at this time into Fireman's Landing and that area for stormwater, which is super important. So, and then finally, Holly has identified 2 grants that could be very possible this year. They just gave us notice last week and they're due in early January. So you hear about this. One is a TAP grant for $500,000. That would be perfect for the Superior portion of this. And then, of course, we can go out for another community development block grant for that, what we're calling phase 4. So having those design plans set up, 30% is really helpful for us. And at last, I know that some council members have opinions and very strong feelings about what that southern investment looks like. Councilman Schreiber, I know you have some great ideas. So I think this gives us the ability to start to come into focus and identify that runway for those funding.
Perfect. Thank you both.
Other council questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman Schreiber, you have the floor.
Yeah, look, Mike, I have some current concerns about the scope of the project. Obviously, looking at page 10 of the contract, the project description says design of building face to building face, which on the east side of the road, the building faces are not following our design standards for that zone, so they're not right up to the property line. So that means there's potential that we would be spending some of this money on designing for work that would be done on private property. Is that accurate?
No, that is exactly what that line says. What it should have said is right-of-way edge to right-of-way edge. Apologies for that. It is not building face to building face in that location. What I believe you're referring to is the few parcels south of Bridge Street along First Avenue. And we do not intend to acquire any right-of-way or do have anything of that context as a part of this project.
Okay. And
But I would add, just excuse the interruption, there is the possibility based on the design, I'll use in front of, what is it, Spuds, basically. I think we're familiar, that's a kind of funky area. So remember the public spoke about urban renewal funding this and why are they jumping on this? Urban renewal approved their budget this year for design and acquisition of $2.1 million for this phase. So there will, I mean, 700,000, we're going to come in well under that, but there will be approximately $1.5 million potentially for land acquisition if something like that funky parking in front of Spuds in the Burger Dock were wanted to be acquired. We would have some available funding to do that if council so desired.
yeah, I guess my concern is that our design for downtown is 0 curb cuts, right? And so all of that space in front of Burger Dock, in front of Spuds would all become unusable for them as soon as we complete our project. And so I guess my concern is that we are spending money to do design work for properties that don't fit our zoning and don't fit the requirements of that zone. And so any future redevelopment of those properties is going to require them to change their development design and bring their setbacks up to the property line. And it's not just Burger Dock and Spuds, but it's also the county properties to the south. Have we spoken with anybody at the county to see what their plan is for those?
We have not with the county. We have had a couple conversations internally during the kind of RFQ solicitation phase with the property managers that own the parcels that Burger Dock or manage the parcels that Burger Dock and Spuds are on. And they're aware of the project, and that's going to be an ongoing conversation with those folks.
Sure.
And Councilman Schreiber, I just add, just for everyone's benefit, the zoning does require build to the street. You're absolutely correct there. There is a provision in there that allows a one-time expansion that doesn't meet that standard. So all buildings that aren't built to the street still can expand one time without being in compliance with the zoning. So those property owners will have some flexibility to develop those sites, but I'm picking up what you're putting down there and understand those concerns. I think a lot of these will come out through this design process. It's going to be very robust: acquisition, access, circulation, future building investment. I think those are all great points that I'm sure the team will be addressing and bring to our attention.
Yeah, I think that, the things that the parts of downtown that people find really charming are those properties that the building comes right to the sidewalk. And I would really hate to, through property acquisition or through whatever work that we're going to do with this project, limit those property owners' ability to follow that same standard with their properties in the future whenever they redevelop those. And I know I was at a meeting that the county sheriff put on, and he made a non-binding comment about how the county might be interested in disposing of those properties there, in which case the future owner would almost certainly redevelop those into some higher use. And so I think it might be a little bit premature of us to include that east side into this project at this point. So it would be my preference, since we have a limited budget and we've just heard that budget is a constraint on this project, it'd be my preference that we focus on the west side of the street and obviously the street itself, and definitely take care of the utilities under the street bed, but focus all of the streetscape design work on the west side of the street where those properties already meet up on that storefront right to sidewalk. And that's because those properties had the most to gain from this work as well. They're the ones that are going to benefit from pedestrians walking in right off the sidewalk, whereas the lawyer's offices across the street don't benefit from that. And I think if we were to limit the scope of this project to just the west side of First Ave, then that could free up some money that we could then use in this phase to address the outfall under Bridge Street and routing it to Farm and Landing for stormwater pretreatment. It's as we heard, it's something that we are very likely to have to fund in the future. And I would hate for us to get through this project and have nothing left in the pot to do this work that will be required of us regardless. And then we'll have to be pulling general fund from it when we spent all of our money on, more watercolor design work for downtown, which is the third, by my estimate, of third round of watercolor design work. So I think there's appetite in our community for actual pipes and pavement type of work rather than more pretty pictures.
Thank you, Councilman Schreiber. I really support what you're saying. I don't know how we design or wait for, the county to make those determination. I hear what you're saying. Like, you want flexibility for those buildings to be able to invest and build to the street. In terms of the budget, this is somewhat rare, but we do have a clock that's ticking, and we have until 2029 to put this urban renewal money to work. just looking at the numbers, and I know you and I haven't gone over them, but there is a very healthy budget for this project and money to do stormwater at Farman Landing. So I would hope when we kick off our strategic planning session with our new council members in January, we can jump right into that and prioritize that as a project and do both at once.
Did I not just hear that budget is a limiting factor on this project? Am I misunderstanding that?
So I think you are misunderstanding. We are working under a budget, but based on the collections that are coming in for the Southern Urban Renewal District, they are exceeding the very conservative estimates by $200,000 a year. And as forecasted right now, urban renewal in the downtown zone will have approximately $4 million to spend after the 2.1 for this design and acquisition, which we're likely not to use all of. So it's looking, fuzzy right now, like we'll have at least $4.5 million to do the project. And then those additional collections over the next 5 years should total another $1 million. So we're going to have a very healthy budget for our downtown projects. The key is we got to get these done and financed and grant matched by 2029. And as you now know, it takes a year plus to get the grants and the project and the design and the construction going. So
quick question. Does your estimate include the decommissioning of the waterfront hotel?
no, this is just on collections, Eric's collections and projections for urban renewal in the Southern District. So even if the hotel does not move right now, SUR only gets the increment, the lift from new construction. So just if we froze everything right now, it appears that the collections would be $200,000 more a year than what we're projected in the downtown. So over the next 5 years, probably $1 million of excess money. And he's already forecasted $4.1 million downtown.
Yeah, I guess my concern remains that I think we should be very frugal with this money that we're spending and not spend the whole pot on streetscape design when we have infrastructure needs that we know are coming up.
100%. And what I'm hearing from you is no more watercolors. I'm 100% in agreement with you. And also stormwater at Farman Park. That's something that's should have been done a long time ago, and I think we can get it done. Any other council questions for Holly or Eric?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman DePette, you have the floor.
I would just say I was saying no fluff and practicality instead of no watercolors.
Well put.
For downtown, in my language. I did have one more question. Page 21 of 32 on this packet that you gave us. 4.8.2 was talking about demolition of trees. What trees are we demolishing?
There's a few stumps out there, but.
Bear with me for a second, Councilor Duquette.
Okay, yeah, it's 21 of 32, the whole contract.
This will be determined through the design process as well. So we might not have those identified at this point.
Okay.
I'm not seeing that in 4.8.2, but
4.8, let me, 21 of 32, hold on, sorry. It's my notes, 21. It's there, I saw it again today. 4.8.2, demolition plan. Provide demolition plan to delineate the limits of removal for items such as asphalt, concrete, trees, utility poles, signs, etc.
Councilor Duquette, that would be a component of the design process, but what I can say off the bat without, kind of initiating that design process is our intention would not be to remove any trees in this context. It would only be, let's call it an extenuating circumstance where something would have to be removed. We intend to be adding trees. Not removing.
Any other council questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution awarding professional services contract to Welch Comer and Associates at Downtown Revitalization Phase 3 Design Services City Agreement A26-3170-2.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schreiber.
I would like to make a motion to postpone this item and instruct staff to amend the project description in the contract to remove the east side of First Ave and also remove the 30% design south of Lake Street and add in the farm and landing stormwater infrastructure as part of the project scope.
I won't repeat that. There's been a motion by Councilman Schreiber, a second by Councilman Spiro. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman Spiro.
Ollie, how would this affect the grant opportunity, say this passes?
We can fulfill the grant for one side of the street. I suppose we'd be asking for half as much as we are right now. So I think the grant opportunities, the stormwater, just understand that would need to be a separate process as part of this. You might see that come back at a later date if you were to approve it.
But would that affect the overall project and the timing?
No, it sounds like you guys would move forward with the design, but just half of the project. So from a timing perspective, it would be the same. From a construction perspective, it might be a little odd to cut that off, but the design engineers would help us with that.
Question. Would you be, can we do both and? What about a scenario where we kept this project moving forward? As you saw, the timing is pretty tight to get this completed. The design, we would always have it, and you certainly will have input on what it looks like and your friends and residents. What if we accelerated a secondary project just for stormwater at Farman, like tomorrow?
I still have my concerns about the east side of the street not really benefiting from all this money that we're about to put at it. And the last thing I think we need is a third set of designs to sit on a shelf. So I stick with my motion.
And Councilman Schreiber, where the McFarland house is down there, currently you can't walk up that east side. We're about to get a new development in the open field between the Powder Hound and the McFarland House. There's going to be no pedestrian connectivity on the east side, on the north side of Superior for where that new development's going in. So if you want to walk from Powder Hound up to Main Street, we don't have sidewalk in front of the McFarland House. So, and then even further, it's kind of funky amongst the courthouse there. So what's your response to how do we provide connectivity downtown from our emerging investment that's taking place down there?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
There is sidewalk in all of the places that you're talking about. In fact, I saw some pictures recently of a rather large rally being held down there where there was hundreds of people standing along the sidewalk in that exact location.
Okay, so the south side of McFarland House, like coming from where the Powder Hound is and around that corner, I guess that's what I'm speaking to.
That's not part of the project scope and it's not part of the SURA boundary.
No, I realize it's not part of the SURA boundary. Okay.
And don't we normally ask the developers to put in sidewalks when they?
Yeah, I'm thinking more specifically the McFarland House, because that's now owned by the county. Okay, thanks. No, that's good point, clarification. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Duquette, you have the floor.
Because of the reason County gave us, and if this would, how would that, what would be your idea after? So when would we go for the east side then in your plan?
At the time of redevelopment.
With no design.
It could be never, which is exactly why we shouldn't be spending money on a design right now. The current development doesn't benefit at all from us spending all this money on pretty streetscapes.
Right.
Because they're not walk-in businesses.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Council President.
I'm going
You
to
have
call
the floor.
for the vote for the motion on the table.
There's not a second yet.
I thought.
Oh, there's a second, we're in discussion, yeah. The call for the vote, this will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Schreiber?
Yes.
Counselor Spiro?
Yes.
Counselor Dick?
No.
Counselor Rule,
No.
Counselor Howarth,
No.
Counselor Duquette.
Yes.
It's exciting month for the mayor, gets to vote. I vote, I believe the motion was do that. I vote no. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, motion fails.
Motion failed. Just to continue discussion, Councilman Trevor, I totally respect and understand what you're saying. From the private development side, oftentimes these designs help to direct investors. I've had numerous conversations with investors in this community as mayor, not as a consultant, who say, such as GBD, who owns a lot of property, what's the design going to be? Then I'll put my money in. So from the private side, they want to kind of see what is our vision, what is our plan, and then they will invest their money. So not having a design really leaves the private sector, private property owners kind of wondering what it's going to look like. I don't say that to challenge you. I'm just trying to put the other side of the coin there for you.
I mean, they could look across the street.
Yeah. Is there, I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution awarding professional service contract with Welch Commodore LLC for Phase 3, Design Service City Agreement 826-3170-2.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dick, second by Roll. This, any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Howarth,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Spiro,
No.
Counselor Schreiber,
No.
Counselor Duquette,
No.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Wow, this is going to be a record. I vote yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
All right. We'll then move on to the consent calendar and then jump into item 7 as requested by Council President Rule. For the record, the total amount of bills for approval is $968,095.54, reflecting $197,663.48 for regular payables, $768,892.45 for payroll, and $1,239.61 in electronic fund transfer charges. Council, do you have any questions? Are there any items you wish to remove from the consent calendar? I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Duquette, second by Dick. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Spiro,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Howarth,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. As amended, we will now move on to item 7, an item brought by Council President Rule for discussion regarding city administrator position. I will now yield the floor to Deb.
Mr. Mayor,
Sorry,
would it be possible to take a short break?
I think it is more than possible. Let's take a 5-minute recess, 6:57. City Council meeting is reconvened at 7:03 PM. We are on item number 7, brought to us by Council President Rule. And Council President Rule, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. So I did want to, I don't know how many people read the packet materials. There are some corrections out there. I know that the one gentleman commented, and I'm assuming he got his information out of the Reader article, where it talks about the city administrating being budgeted at $335,000. So that was actually for the Office of City Administrator. That included professional technical support, purchased supplies. It also covered 2 positions. It was two hired positions in that $335,000. It was not one position there. There was also some reference to the mayor's office budget totaling $169,000. The actual mayoral's office was only $55,000. The $169,000 is actually a reflection of all of the elected offices. That would mean that the entire counselors, any supplies, benefits, et cetera, that go with that. So I just really wanted to clarify that for the public. I thought that is, it could have been misconstrued as a salary, and it was absolutely not a salary of $335,000. And then, let's see. I wanted to bring up, well, I think I'm going to save my points. I'm going to give the floor to the rest of the counselors. They had a lot of packet reading to do, and I would really like to hear sort of their bullet points, either for or against this position being reinstated. And I'll leave it to them. I'm not sure who wants to start.
Thank you, Council President. You've relieved yourself of the floor. As presiding officer, I will proceed. Council President.
Mr. Mayor, this is the council's discussion.
Yes, I'm the
So-
presiding officer, and to be in order, you've had the floor. I take the floor back now. Any discussion or council comment at this point on what Council President Rule has expressed? No.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Aspiro, you have the floor.
Yeah, as we discussed this, obviously it's a hot topic and there's going to be things that are misunderstood or not fully understood. With something of this nature, Council President, and I'd like to hear from other councilors, what would you think the most appropriate way as we look for this, the best way to budget for this? Or maybe we can talk about also, why we chose as a body not to raise the stronger salary. Is why we don't is ready for that. And maybe I'll start off with that. That's one thing that I was not in favor of, is having a full-time paid mayor or even council. I personally don't think Sandpoint is ready for that quite yet. I think that potentially maybe we're not big enough for that quite. I think it could potentially bring the wrong motives to run for city council, possibly even opportune. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for the whole body here. That's my personal opinion. So that is why I voted to not have a full-time mayor salary or council for that matter. And I think as we move forward, that does come with trade-offs of is the benefit of maybe a city administrator. And if not having an administrator, we also heard a council or a comment from the public about, there's no actual job description in regards to how many hours a mayor works. And quite frankly, there's none for council. We're technically part-time, although if you look at all the conversations we have and on the street and on the phone and in the public, it does feel like full-time, but we don't get paid that. So that's kind of where I stand with you guys is if we are going to discuss city administrator, it'd be important to discuss what are ways we can fund that, what we can take away from. Is that going to be a burden on the city? How would that benefit the department heads? Do they need a city administrator? Let's say we get a mayor 2 years from now that doesn't want to work, that isn't here, and they're not required to. And I would like to ask legal, what does that look like, whether for a council or for a mayor, being an elected position? How do you put stipulations on how many hours you work? I think that you don't have to answer that now. I'm saying these are questions that we can ask and try to discuss as we move forward, discussing city administrator, also hear more from the public. This is just a discussion. This is not an action item. So those are my thoughts. I don't think Sandpoint's ready for a full-time paid mayor or city council for that matter. I think having what we pay now encourages people who really want to run for the right reasons. So I'll start off with that and let this discussion evolve.
Thank you, Councilman Spiro, and I will entertain the next member of the council. Before I just say, I hope the council includes the mayor. The mayor is the presiding officer. I don't usually give opinions. I try not to give too many, but I hope you, since I sit in the seat and know what an administrator would do as my employee or the mayor's employee, I hope you would ask and receive my comments and feedback on this.
Mr. Mayor.
Council President Rule, you have the floor.
I believe it might be pertinent. So this is something that I sort of compiled. It was posted, but it seems that maybe not everyone took the time to read it. I'm not saying my council didn't. They're not my council. They're actually your council. Sorry for misspeaking. Potential reasons a city should adopt a city administrator system. So number one, professional expertise in daily operations. A city administrator is trained in public management, budgeting, and operations. There's no guarantee that an elected mayor has the background. And I'm not speaking toward our current mayor. I'm speaking about any elected mayor in the future. I just want to be clear about that. It ensures that day-to-day decisions are made by someone with technical expertise rather than elected officials who may or may not have administrative backgrounds. And again, depends on who the public elects. And I think in today's world, a lot of times any elected office, and I'll even put myself out there, is a popularity contest. It doesn't necessarily rely upon your skills. So that individual would also be accountable because there would be a number of hours worked and there would be a job description. So more efficient and consistent services with one person overseeing all departments, services like public works, utilities, police, parks, and planning operate more smoothly and with better coordination. The departments do tend to get siloed, and we've witnessed some of that happening up here on the dais, again, at no fault of their own, but sometimes they need someone to coordinate. It reduces delays, duplication, and miscommunication. One point of contact, and there's one message. Again, I already mentioned the accountability piece. Number 3, reduce political influence on operations. Any elected officials, including myself, focus on policy and vision while the administrator handles those operations. The separation leads to more stability for the city, less turnover in department leadership, fewer political swings in how services can be delivered. Number 4, improved budget management. Just this past summer, we witnessed a little bit of chaos around budgeting. Our preliminary budget did not pass, and we had to bring it back at a later meeting. The process seemed a little bit disjointed. We didn't have enough opportunity for workshopping, as I believe it was Councilman Dick who pointed that out beforehand. So improved budget management. City administrators are actually schooled in that long-term financial planning, cost control, grant management, and capital improvement plans. Again, results in better budgeting and more transparency, stronger financial health. Number 5, better long-term planning and continuity. Mayors and council members come and go, but a city administrator would provide continuity as there's changeover. And having sat up here for quite some time, it does make a difference. We heard a short little story about Austin leaving, and he's the only one who knows where the pipes are buried. So it kind of helps to have somebody who's been around for a while. They also keep long-term projects moving forward and ensure consistent progress, even though elections and leadership changes over time. And then as far as what I really want to put out there to the public, implementation of a new city administrator, and the mayor just spoke to this, identify the needs. Why do we need a city administrator? So we would talk to the department heads. Why do we need a city administrator? Does it make sense? Then what we're currently doing, what are the community needs? We put this out here as a discussion item to have it out to the public so we can get feedback from the public. Then also they can help guide strategic plans. What are the needs of the council members? How will this help the council members with legislative process, budgeting process, ordinance, policy? And then again, what are the mayoral needs? You know, the mayor himself has said that he needs all the help that he can get. And there was also a letter that was printed as a part of the packet that the mayor wrote us in June about asking for the raise. So, and then we need to define the position, the job description, required qualification, expected salary ranges, the organizational structure, and what that workload would be. And as I've said, guardrails, checks and balances, potential, I'd like to hear what the community has to say. How do you think it would work? And again, we'd have to look at the budget. I've had conversations with the treasurer. She said, the budget is the budget. There's always room to move things around, make changes. Is it easy? No, I think budget is going to get harder and harder, especially with what we've witnessed recently and having to look at our health insurance plans and and change the city after 40 years to a different company. So yeah, budget is hard. There would also be training needs, impact on future budgets. And as a part of implementing, updating our HR and our city policies, personnel policies, organizational policies, pay policies, and then we would need to begin a recruitment. Part of what other things that were in the packet talked about all the cities that actually function with a city administrator: Ammon, Driggs, Ketchum, Orofino, Hayden. McCall has just recently sort of changed their system up. Wasn't aware of that. Bonners Ferry functions with a city administrator, the city of Coeur d'Alene, the city of Rathdrum, the city of Post Falls. So there are a lot of other governments that have figured out how to function in this way and have become, I believe, more efficient in a lot of ways. So I'm really looking for input and feedback from the community. Again, not an action item tonight, a discussion item. But I think one of the things is we need a chief operating officer, we need a chief executive officer. But again, there's no way in state code to require an elected official to be here. There's no guarantees they're going to be able to have the skills to manage over 100 employees and to also move a budget of $40 million. So I will stop there and allow our next council member. Hopefully that was helpful guiding the discussion.
Thank you, Council President Rule. Other councils have discussion or would like this discussion. Again, I would love to be afforded. I have some thoughts on it. I don't think it's in conflict with anyone here, so I'd love to be able to share those after you've discussed this further.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Howarth, you have the floor.
I'll share my thoughts. And they're evolving. One of the things I did is Monday I came in and individually met with each of the department heads. I didn't want to do it in a group setting because I think you get groupthink that way. And so I met with each of the department heads individually. There was a general consensus, and I'm not going to speak specifically of what anybody said, but in general, there was a general consensus that a city administrator could improve the operations of the city. As we then discussed a bit further, I said, well, what do you think is the ideal timing for, if we were to go do this, what do you think would be the timing? And almost general consensus would be toward the end of the current mayor's term, somewhere in June of 27, if my math is correct. So it feels like, again, in the timeline that I see in the material that we got, trying to go push something in January of 2026 seems unreasonable and a little bit of the cart before the horse. And I say that because when I was in engineering at the University of Idaho, I got this pounded into my head from every professor. The first thing a good engineer does is define the problem we're trying to solve. I've never heard us talk about what is the problem we're trying to go solve. We're trying to go say we need a city administrator and then find all of the reasons why we think that's the right. I would say what we ought to go do is we ought to go sit down with the mayor and talk about, and the mayor, let's recognize the mayor is the CEO of the city. If we put an administrator in, that person's going to report to the mayor. We'll take their direction from the mayor. Ultimately, the mayor can decide to be the decision maker. Even if you have a city administrator, the mayor still can say, I am going to make the final decisions. We need to sit down and have that discussion with the mayor and say, what role do you have and responsibilities do you want to take on yourself? And then once we understand that, then we can define what are the remaining roles that we think needed to be covered. And then we can decide whether that's really a city administrator, is that a chief of staff, is that an executive assistant? I don't know, because we've never talked about what those roles and responsibilities might be. So it feels I'm not against it. It just feels very much like we've got the sequencing incorrect right now. I will also tell you, in my conversations with our treasurer, she let me know that next year's budget is going to look tighter than this year's. And so if we want to go add an administrator at $150,000 to $175,000, more than likely we're going to have to go reorganize the entire organization, find opportunities to reduce headcount. Those are hard discussions. Those take time. They need thoughtful discussion versus just jumping into it as well. So those would be kind of my key thoughts. Is it just feels like we're rushing this. We don't really have a proper problem definition that we're trying to go solve. We're trying to just go say we need a city administrator. And I think there's a lot more work and discussion with the mayor on what role he wants to play in his last 2 years. So I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Mayor?
Council President Rule, you have the floor.
The intent of the January was in having an interim appointed to move through a lot of those questions that you put out there to develop those job descriptions, those policies. And I do not believe our previous city administrator made that type of salary. I think that this council would have the choice, depending on that job description, to the pay level of that. So I don't want the public to believe that those things are written in stone. I think we also need to reflect on our state code where the council, we don't have an incredibly strong mayoral system here in Sandpoint. The council has a lot of direction. They manage the budget and they legislate the ordinance. They also direct the policy, which then directs the mayor and how he manages. I believe we can also write policy and make guardrails in such a way that we have a city administrator that would connect directly with the councilors for legislative policy and ordinance reasons, which are all within our designated legislative description. So I think there's a lot of gray area within that. And I think there would be a checks and balances in that. When you have a staff that works for the executive branch and also works for the legislative branch, there has to be a balance in their connection on both of those levels. So I just wanted to clarify some of that. And that's all written in the state code, which was also attached to the agenda item.
Mr.
Just for
Mayor,
clarification.
if I can just
President Rule, are you done there?
Yes, I am.
Councilman Howard, you have the floor.
Yep, and you gave us thank you, Madam President. You gave us a lot of good information, and I looked at many of the cities, and I'll just pick one, the city of Amon, and it very clearly says that this position works under the general direction of the mayor. So again, I think all of this, if we move forward, and I'm not saying I'm against, I just think there's a bunch of work that we have to go do. We absolutely have to have the input of the mayor and what roles and responsibilities he wants to cover in his remaining 2 years as mayor. And if I'll leave it at that. But thank you for all of the good information that you gave us.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor?
Just a moment, Madam President. And just to clarify there, hopefully something that's helpful for the council and myself and everyone in the community. I'm really thrilled that at our next meeting, the Deputy Director of the Association of Idaho Cities, who's an attorney, will be coming and giving us a presentation on the standard for executive versus legislative branch and cities in the state. So hopefully that'll be helpful as you proceed. Continue on, Council President Rule.
I've lost my point now that you, I believe I was going to say I agreed with some of what Councilor Howarth said. Again, I feel we can move on to the next counselor.
Thank you, Council President Rule. And I'll just use this moment just to say I believe this is prudent to think about the end of my term and what's going to happen then. This is going to sound egotistical, but first of all, I work more than 1 day a week. That was a goal, but it's a 7-day-a-week job, and I'm here at least 2.5 days a week. But I would say I think it is wise for the council to think about these things and where we're headed after my term. I don't intend to run for mayor again. Succession planning is important. I think the budget is difficult, and it's going to be, taking away headcount. But when I look back at that back table, I see directors in HR, contracts, grant writing with master's degrees.
Mr. Mayor?
You're not recognized right now, Madam President, unless there's a motion. I see a finance director. I see exceptional planning and public works and fire and police. So a lot of these skill sets that you were discussed as an administrator, I think we have in the room, and I'm grateful, so grateful the council's allowed us to stand up some of the most professional, capable department heads in the state of Idaho. I mean that with all sincerity. So, I think we should, continue this discussion. And there's some good focal points. Number one, which is what department or functions are we not accommodating or serving the public well right now? I'm biased, but I think we're doing a great job right now. Any other council discussion?
Are you going, Counselor Dick?
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Dick, you recognize you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I was the only one here that that didn't vote to get rid of the city administrator position when this came around. So, and I've been on record saying this a couple of different times. I agree with Councilor Howarth and some of what Councilor Spiro said as well. I look at the position as an extension of the mayor, and I'm not sure that we've actually experienced that yet to date. I like the idea of having 2 public information officers. That's a tough job to train somebody up for. It typically falls on the city administrator or falls on the mayor. I think a lot of our issues with getting the word out to the public is that there's only one point of contact. So it gets very challenging if you can't get to that one point. The mayor's very busy, city administrator's busy. We're not always going to get somebody like Jeremy that's got both the public, the private sector service, the consulting in multiple jurisdictions. I'm always concerned that it is a popularity contest. I think, Chase, you brought up the way the county does it right now. And again, no disrespect to the county, but is that working? Right? Is that working to pay that position and to have somebody come in and win a popularity contest that might not have the experience? And we're actually quite fortunate that Jeremy does have the experience right now, but we need to, again, take a look at succession planning. Where are we going to be? I often think of myself, could I be at the restaurant 1 day a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a month, showing up for the council meetings? Probably not. And despite the skill sets that we have along the back wall of that room there, as high as they all are, skill set doesn't mean that you can collaborate or that there is continuity with staff. All of these different departments collaborate on a daily basis. Can they get that done with somebody that might not be showing up more than 2 days a week, other than coming to, and I don't not using you as an example, but coming in for a leadership meeting once a week, twice a week, and getting that to happen. What happens when you're not here? The mentoring that goes on, the shoulder to cry on. There's a lot that goes into running an organization that typically doesn't make the newspaper and doesn't make these meetings as well too. I think, Rick, you brought up some really interesting points about the timing of this too. I certainly would like to hear from our mayor and get some of his insights on how it might be helpful to him or to future mayors as well. And I think that's probably good for now.
Any other council discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll take a turn.
Chairman Duquette, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First off, thanks, Deb. I know you did a lot of work for this preparation. The salary thing bothered me because, again, like other people have said, if somebody runs for the salary only, it would be nice to have job duties kind of listed, like Terry had said, timing, if that has to be in a mayor's description. I'm thinking maybe lots of different ideas. I am not ready to make a decision on this at this point, that's for sure. Maybe a part-time administrator. I do understand the job of mayor is time consuming. You've said it yourself. You would like to have an administrator to help. How that works, I'm not sure. Like I said, maybe a part-time. List the job duties. Rick, you had great ideas, as you usually do with your experience. I know we're not the first city to face this. I had shared with Deb that Ketchum just took it to the voters last fall to become a council manager type city government, which is what McCall is doing. And so I read about that and it was interesting. The council gets elected, the council picks a mayor out of who is elected as council, and then they hire a manager. I know there's lots of different ways to do it. I don't want to move too fast on this either. It's a big problem to solve. I worry about a mayor taking on an authoritative mindset. If it's just one person running everything, I think the staff has said, like Rick said that he interviewed, they would prefer maybe to have an administrator, and the timing, I'm not sure. I guess, Mayor, when you're going to say something, you were quoted in the paper, and I want to know why this would change. It says, however, he, meaning you, stated that he loves the level of engagement the current council has with city issues and asks the council to continue their faith in the department head model. It's something I haven't seen in many years, at least publicly, asking great questions, having great discussions like this. Why would that change with a city administrator, I guess? And you don't have to answer that.
Oh, I
but
will,
you can put
Councilwoman
that in
Duquette,
your
quickly.
And just let me finish. I also ran on not having an administrator, city administrator, because of the experience and, like Chase said, the bad taste in the mouth. Not that that should always be like that, because I had never run either way, been involved either one. So it's been interesting.
And Councilwoman Duquette, thank you. And what I mean by that is the years when I didn't work for the city and was engaged, it appeared to me that clearly this former city administrator did a lot of communication with the council, a lot of engagement, outreach about projects, about budget, about all those things. And it just seemed often that there wasn't a lot of discussion. It seemed like an item was brought forward, and not saying it was predetermined, but, and many of them are legislative items, so they can sort of be influenced, but it seemed like there just wasn't a lot of council debate and discussion. And I really love, under this department head format, even if you had an unqualified mayor, you're going to get reports from these directors. You're going to hear daily updates or weekly updates. You're going to be able to direct the mayor to focus on things through those department heads. You're going to be able to hold those department heads accountable. You can remove department heads. I love the debate. We don't always agree, but I love the discussion. It seems like the council is doing a lot more work and really getting into the research and the details of these things. And I think that's something the public deserves. And I commend you all on the work you're doing.
And that's exactly what I expected the job to be. I did not want to sit up here and what everybody called rubber stamp things. I want to ask questions. I want to be involved. And I don't know why we couldn't have staff share and have discussions with staff with an administrator. I'm just saying that. And I have really appreciated, because I learned so much going into the office, and they're always open their door for me, even though I'm not agreeing with what they're promoting. And then I learn a lot, and I've learned so much in 2 years. It's crazy.
You're going to learn a lot more.
Crazy. Anyway, so that's where I am. Kind of not sure.
Councilman Schreiber, comments on this?
Yes, that makes it my turn, doesn't it?
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm also pretty conflicted on this. I was pretty adamant about removing the city administrator position. I was pretty hopeful that this strong department head model could work, which is why I was really dismayed to see the letter this summer that from the mayor basically saying that it wasn't tenable, and sort of forcing us to look for a solution to this problem. A couple things I think need to be said is we cannot change the mayor's salary for the rest of this mayor's term. So any discussion of how much we're going to pay a mayor is only going to affect the next mayor. And when you think about what is the level of compensation that would motivate somebody who is qualified for this role to run and really show up and do a good job, well, we don't really know that until we know what the qualifications of that person are. And that makes it really difficult. And the other point, I think, and I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding is that it's dictated in state law that we don't have any control over the mayor's performance. So we can't stipulate in our, is that accurate? Yeah, so we can't stipulate in our code that the mayor has to show up a certain number of hours. And I mean, when you think about qualifications, sitting in a seat doesn't really get things done. It would be more performance. We need this to be accomplished. And so that is something that we could prescribe with a city administrator is say, you have to get this done or else, you're fired, right? So there's the benefit of a city administrator that we can write those rules that we can't for a mayor. The opposite is that, yeah, if a mayor is doing a bad job, the public can vote them out of office, which, isn't necessarily true for a city administrator, although an action of council can remove a city administrator. So that is an option. I think that it's worth saying that, we look at some of these comparable cities with comparable populations, but I think a lot of those cities are suburbs of bigger cities, whereas we're a county seat and serve to a large extent. We see people from the county come in and say that this is their hometown, right? And so it's not just the 10,000 people that are in our city limits, but it's more the 50 or more thousand people in the county that call this place home. And that puts a much bigger load on the mayor's office than a comparable size city that's a suburb of a bigger city. So I think it's a very big role, and the pool of people that live in the city limits that are actually qualified to fill that position is pretty small. And to find someone who's willing to run, to put their life on hold and take on that civic duty, and also shares the vision of the voters is not a guarantee. I think it would be far easier to find someone who shares the vision of the voters but doesn't have the qualifications, and to supplement those qualifications with a city administrator than to hope for that unicorn to show up, somebody who has the qualifications, shares the vision of the community, is willing to put their entire life on hold for 4 years, their career on hold, when it's very clearly a very qualified person that has a pretty high earning potential, probably a lot higher than we can afford to pay them. So, if we were to move towards a city administrator, I do want to see some very hard line guardrails to make sure we don't end up in a situation where we have an unelected bureaucrat that can't be removed from office. But I do think that this conversation is worth having, because we are in a bit of a predicament where who is going to be the next mayor and what will be their qualifications, and we don't know that.
Well said, Councilman Schreiber. And I just add on, don't get me wrong, when I ran, my flyer said reconsider or something like that, city administrator. There are some benefits. I'll use the waterfront design competition, for example. You get a change in mayor administration and boom, that kind of hit the wall because I wasn't super supportive of it. And I do get to direct staff and say, this is your priority for work today. But that continuity of big projects, that is a benefit of having a city administrator holdover between administrations. What I've observed in almost 20 years of public service is that here's the downside, is sometimes you get a administrator who may be trying to climb the career ladder and may pursue grants and shiny objects that maybe not be in the best interest of this community, but sure make their resume look good. I got this project done, this grant, and we're pushing, look at all the stuff I did as city administrator. And that tension sometimes can, if you don't have a real tight council and mayor, can lead to the city pursuing projects that might not be in the best interest of the city or the residents. So that's sort of the downside. But I think from the mayor's position, yeah, it's a lot of work. I meet with everyone individually every week and collectively. Your phone's always ringing. You're here signing documents and helping shoulders to cry on. To have an assistant, I told you all I'd love to because we could get a lot more done. But for me, it comes down to the finances. Our budget's going to be really tight, and I don't know how we afford it. And yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation because 2 years will be here done before we can blink our eyes.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Aspiro, you have the floor.
Yeah, I haven't been one of the 3 council members that experienced mayor, city administrator, and now not. I think we have a unique perspective, whether good or bad. I would argue that the career ladder situation could also be applied to somebody who is the mayor who's trying to go to something else, right? We had a previous mayor who ran for governor, right? So you could, he was a registered Republican and ran as a Democrat. It's weird sometimes, but so you could make the same argument for the mayor, right? Where we could say, hey, let's reduce the mayor's salary to almost nothing. They can just be ceremonial as they're supposed to be, and then the council can put those strict restrictions on a city administrator, and then the people who run for council who have the community vision can orchestrate that, right? So there's other options when it comes to funding, and we can hire within the city. Like you said, there are very qualified people here, and somebody stated earlier, I think it was Councilman Schreiber, about, not only just the ability, but the willingness to run. And that individual may have all the intellectual skills, but their people skills might be 0.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have that individual who is skilled, but not in dealing with people. And sometimes, we can look at numbers and just crunch numbers and say, okay, this individual running for mayor or one mayor has all this skill set, but he can't relay that to other people because he or she's a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Or we don't trust him.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's not all the information that public's going to have of why we're even having discussions, say like one we have tonight. And that's not fair to the public. And quite frankly, it's not even fair to the council. And to some degree, it's not fair to the mayor, unless it's the mayor and the particular reason why we're in this situation. So I think those are some things to consider as we're dealing with all of this is, yeah, skill set, obviously we need that. Willingness to put your life on hold, you need that. But also to the human aspect of it. People, they're not just numbers back there. They're individuals with emotions, different political backgrounds, different thought processes. So having somebody who's mayor who knows how to handle people, to hear them, value them, and not just them thinking they're valuing them, but them as individuals, as employees feeling valued as well.
Well said, Councilman Spiro.
Mr. Mayor.
Council President Rule, the floor is yours.
I'd just like to point out that the council develops the strategic plan for the city, and the budget is made, and the council approves the budget, and the city administrator would follow through on directing employees to make sure that those plans occur and are followed through. So they don't have a free rein to do whatever they want. They also have the guardrail of a mayor. So I just want to clarify that they're not a city manager who's hired and can run the city without input or without bringing the bills to the council to approve every other week. So there are already some guardrails, but I think those need to be very clarified for the public. And again, if council did decide at some point to move in this direction, I think job descriptions and policies about those types of things would need to be very clear. But we don't have a city manager type of government. That's how a city manager type of government runs. So you hire somebody to run it. We still have a city council mayoral system that Sandpoint uses.
And may I? jump to
Council,
Deb?
yeah, Council President, Councilwoman Duquette.
I mean, all the ideas are looking for more work. How would we do that? Figure out the job descriptions and the guardrails, and whose job would that be to come up with all that? I guess is my.
Well, I could try to answer that a little bit from the executive branch, the mayor's side. We have an HR expert, master's in public administration, Cheryl. She develops job descriptions with input from department heads, input from myself. We write policy. Cheryl writes policy. I review it. So we have all the components to do those things.
One of the cities we read about, the city administrator did all of Cheryl's work.
Yeah, no, that's kind of
Is
a
that- would that-
potential duplicative.
That eliminate positions that
Well,
we have.
looking at the budget this year and next year, I think we'll be hard pressed with the state rollbacks. If you saw the paper today, they're cutting assistance for mental health support. It's not going to be a pretty year in the state of Idaho. We've got other internal things like lodging tax and yeah, I think you would be hard pressed to find the money in the budget. Like I said, I'd love 2 assistants and 2 administrators, but we just can't afford it. And I guess I leave with this. I assure the folks and all of you that I am working very hard multiple days a week here and will continue to do that for my term. And I think things are running smoothly, but this is a good discussion to have because, as I said, 2 years will be up before any of us know it. Maybe we can do a GoFundMe campaign for the mayor. I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Council President?
I know we have a lot of other agenda items to cover, so for the sake of staff, if everybody's at least had a partial say at this point, I would like to move on to the next item on the agenda.
Any objection to moving on to the next item?
Only if I can say one more thing, maybe this is something that should be out to the voters. Maybe there should be a vote
Non-binding
in the
referendum? Yeah.
community like Ketchum did when they decided.
Well, that was for city manager form of government,
Yeah, they
a little
had to
bit different.
change their form of government from a mayor to an administrator.
That's an
to
option
be-
we have.
I'm just saying, then we would get input from.
All right, thank you for bringing this item to the floor, Council President Rule. I think it's a timely and important discussion for the community to have. Moving on, we'll go back to item 4, old business. We have a number of postponed from the last meeting, and we'll begin with the final plat for Phase 3 of the University Park subdivision, City File PS 20003. And before we entertain this item, I just want to clarify a couple things and eventually step down from the dais. This is up on Boyer, if you're not aware. I worked in my Whiskey Rock planning business, the former owners of this property, Tim McDonald and Mike Kinney. I took them through the platting process and the subdivision process. This parcel has subsequently been sold to Mr. Mort. I've had no involvement in the reconfiguration or finalizing of this plat. Despite that, in addition, Mr. Mort is a client of mine. I work for him outside of the city limits. I have no financial interest in the outcome of this plat, but for the perception of conflict of interest, I'm going to step down and ask Madam President to take over. I can bring you the script. And do you have one? And I will leave the room.
Staff did not provide a presentation for this item. There is a staff report. Typically, final plats are on consent. If there are any questions, myself and Bill Dean, our city planner, are available for any questions.
And I will yield the floor, it says, to City Planner Bill Dean.
Good evening, council.
I get a script.
I'm going to go unscripted as well. It's nice to see you again. Thank you so much. Normally, like our public works director mentioned, this is normally an item that's on consent. I appreciate knowing that it's not on consent, so we can answer your questions and more thoroughly get into the details should you need them. Just as a quick refresher, this is subdivision platting is really a two-step process. There's a preliminary plat, which is really a conceptual idea of how a piece of property is going to be divided. There's conditions of approval. There's a public hearing process that is used to approve those pursuant to not only state law, but our code. This was done on December 2nd, 2020. So 5 years and a day ago, this preliminary plat was approved for the 75 acres that is now known as University Place. At the time of the approval, there were 4 phases identified in the staff report that I could find, phases 1 through 4. Phase 1 was approved on September 1st of 2021 and subsequently built with roads and infrastructure and a number of homes. Phase 2 was done sometime thereafter, split up into subphases, and that brings us to phase 3. Phase 4 was the subject of an exercise of a PUD and a rezone that expired, as we talked about earlier this year. Phase 3 is what's before you this evening. Again, the final plat is really the implementation step of a preliminary plat. What's interesting about this particular project, not all plats have with them a development agreement, which is essentially a contract between the city and a property owner. That was approved also on December 2nd of 2020 and subsequently split in two on September 3rd of 21, given the ownership split on the property. So you've got one set of property owners that are orchestrating phases 1 through 3, a separate property owner orchestrating number 4. Tonight, this is about item number 3. When staff looks at a final plat, what we do is we review the municipal code, the final plat against the preliminary plat, and as well in this case is the development agreement. That DA has 2 relevant sections, Section 5, which establishes that there's required public infrastructure to be done, and then Section 12 that lists essentially the conditions of approval A through N. So it was a thorough review that had to be undertaken on this particular plat because you've got not only the code, the preliminary plat, but also the development agreement. So the typical process would be an application is filed for a final plat, a public infrastructure permit would have been issued, and Public Works Department would have been ensured that the public infrastructure was designed to city standard in accordance with those conditions of approval. So another point to think about when you have a development agreement and these conditions of approval to see if there were any off-site infrastructure requirements that might have been necessary or any other project amenities or things that would have been typically tied to the phasing, phases 1, 2, 3. This has to be done before phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3. So all of that was vetted as well. And Holly and I worked very closely together to make sure that this project was ready for your consumption and ready for approval. So that's a little bit of history and how we actually conduct our work. It's a very thorough process we have to go through. We'll have a discussion next time if the phase 4 final plat is ready. That's something that Holly and I are both working on with the property owner right now. But tonight is about phase 3, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
I don't even know what to call you.
You're recognized, Councilwoman Duquette.
Thank you. I know there were a few conditions.
Mhm.
My question is, they were to be met by the 31st. Have they been met?
The infrastructure delivery has been met for phases 1 and this particular phase 3. Their obligations have been met.
Okay.
Phase 2 has been partially met because it was split. It was split up, and only a portion of phase 2 is moving forward. Phase 4 is going to become before you in a couple weeks, so we'll speak about that particular agenda item when it comes. But I can answer your question. If phase 1 was complete, phase 3 is complete. Phase 2 was split up into subphases, and the portion that was built upon was complete. And I'm going to turn to Public Works Director to have her confirm that.
Yes, we did a final walkthrough. It included their engineer of record, Century West, Ryan Lutman, our streets department, our utilities department, our public works technician, confirmed a punch list item. There are minor cleanup items. Those cleanup items include water meters that need to be adjusted, 2 manholes that need to be adjusted, really common warranty work. So we'll come back, they give us a warranty bond and 20% of the improvements. So we'll check before any certificate of occupancy to ensure that those items have been closed out, but really typical common punch list items from this development.
You're the experts. I would say if you say they've met the conditions. That's all I have.
Madam President.
You are recognized, Councilman Schreiber.
So it sounded like, just got me thinking what you were just talking about. So it sounds like the certificate of occupancy would be the only carrot that we would have after this point tonight.
We have a warranty bond for those items, so if the contractor does not act to complete any of those items, we can take that money and perform that work.
Oh, okay. So if they were to sell the lots and never worry about certificate of occupancy, because that's somebody else's problem, we would just do the work with the performance bond.
Yep.
Perfect. Excellent.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Dean. I would entertain a motion to approve the final plat for Phase 3 of the University Park subdivision, City File PS 20-0003.
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote.
Madam President.
Oh, sorry, right, we can have discussion. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, that even beyond the mayor's involvement, this was a pretty controversial development at the time of the preliminary plat in 2020. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to deny it. It has several aspects that are in contradiction to our code and our comprehensive plan. But that being said, the current property owner has fulfilled all the conditions of approval from the preliminary plat, so I don't know that there's anything we can do at this point. But I do want to express gratitude to our current planning staff for all the work that they've done to make this the best project that it can be.
Any further discussion?
Counselor Howarth,
Yes.
Counselor Spiro,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Dick.
Yes.
Madam President, motion passes.
Okay, and then we're going to move on to item number 6. So I believe that is Cedar Street reconstruction, and the mayor will return as staff is coming up.
Let's see. 7:57, mayor returning. Can the mayor get a quick update? Did the action take place? Madam
Yes,
President?
action was approved.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, next is an update on the Cedar Street reconstruction project, and staff is seeking council direction. I will now yield the floor to project manager, Rachel McKinley. Rachel, good evening.
Hi, good evening, council.
Rachel's sick, so bear with
I
her.
apologize. Yes, I took this project on when I started in September, and today we're here to give you an update on the work that has been completed since the March 12th special meeting and workshop on this reconstruction project. And to get clarification for some of the conferred features that were listed from our findings. So this is the council's confirmed features from that meeting. And so we're going to go through a few of those to get that clarification.
Rachel, could I ask you to do the little thing next to the Zoom and make it full screen, if that doesn't interfere you? Bottom right.
Might be having a
Oh,
issue.
no problem.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
Public Works
sorry.
Director, Holly Ellis for the
I hear
record.
this voice.
Sorry. I just wanted to thank Rachel McKinley. She is our new project manager. In March, this project didn't get a lot of attention. We had that culvert collapse in June, which diverted my time. Rachel was hired with us 2 months ago, just about, and was able to pick up this project. So I kind of left her. Things really did leave off on that March update. We did have HMH engineer progress some things. We found some findings, and so she's here today just to give you an update. So very thankful to have her on our staff.
And Rachel also single-handedly was a major force behind the water bond, if you're not aware.
Did we get it figured out? I hope. Okay. We got a team here.
It's good.
Oh, got it. I was okay. Okay. Yeah, so the let me see if I can. I just want to see all that. So, yep, just as I said, some of the background, watching that workshop, and then these were the pieces that working with the project engineer, the design engineer, there was some clarifications that we did need. In your council packet, we always like to provide options and solutions. Those were just 3. Of course, always up for discussion and different ideas, but we just didn't want to come with, hey, we found a problem, but here's some options that we have. So first and foremost, tonight we're not talking about the silver maple as a part of the direction that we're asking for, specifically because this silver maple has special considerations. So that will be presented as we are learning more about the tree and the questions that we were presented with, but we did want to provide an update. So we did I met with the property owner. The trees of concern that were also, I believe, brought up in the public comment this evening are all on one property. And so we did meet with that property owner and just to get a better perspective and the background of those trees. We also discussed with the Urban Forestry Commission this month, which Councilman Schreiber updated you on, is the determination if this silver maple is a heritage tree or desired tree. That gives us guidance on the efforts as well, if it's, I would say, like through the process labeled as a heritage tree or not. So that's kind of a cool thing that we're doing, is that process of learning how to identify those trees as these projects come up and using that input from the community. We were also have been in the, and this has been one of our challenges, is hiring a consultant or a consulting or a certified arborist to give us really assess the maple tree and give us a understanding of cost options to save the tree, mitigation during design, construction, relocate. Apparently this was a very busy season for arborists, so we have reached out to the contract engineer reached out to over 6. We're at the process of hopefully engaging a certified arborist on this tree specifically. So I wanted to give you that update about that, and we'll be returning to council when we have a more thorough assessment on these trees. We also we met with the design engineer, street and utilities crew, IHG, and Avista. When we spoke about the traffic calming alternatives, the 10.5-foot travel lanes brought up a lot of operational concerns. All of them recommended to stay with the city standard of 12 feet because of those operational concerns. With some of our crews that have over 25 years of recommendation, or their recommendations that our projects are designed and built for maintenance, for year-round maintenance. So even though I'm showing you a picture of winter maintenance, the wider 12-foot roads and city standards also allow for year-round maintenance that is cost-effective on their equipment, their time, and their resources, and they feel like they would be able to provide a better service. So that comes from our street crews and our utility crews. That also goes with addressing manholes and sewers and just overall operation. So I wanted to share that as their perspective of they are going to be ultimately the ones that take on the roads and they're going to be maintaining that. And this was their recommendation. We also looked at, so we were asking the council to also consider an alternative traffic calming where we'll do multiple bulb outs or raised crosswalks with the city standard of 12 feet width. And that would also include around the silver maple as applicable.
And if I could just add to that. So we heard from council previously that traffic calming was a concern on this area. Our city standard is 12-foot travel lanes, and the council requested to deviate from that and look at 10 and a half. When we talk to our street crews, utility crews, IHD, who actually owns our right-of-way, they presented operational concerns. So we wanted to bring that back to council. There wasn't anyone with operational backgrounds at that meeting. So we wanted to share these concerns that our snowplow operators, our utility operators who are closing the street down to react to water main breaks, lateral service line breaks, they were concerned with how restrictive that 10 and a half foot lane was. One consideration from our utilities group was when they're out on streets and there's a water main break, they're often able to close one travel lane and get their work done. When we were restricting them to this 10 and a half feet, that's 3 feet that they lost total, approximately. And with that 3 feet, they would no longer on this corridor feel comfortable if there was a water main break. We are replacing the water main with this project, so we shouldn't see leaks in that area for some time, but that's kind of that operational lens that we wanted to share with you. Again, we do have or 12 to 10 foot plows that come through our town. So just sharing that lens. There are alternatives that they were open or recommended as an alternative to those narrower lanes for traffic calming, bulb outs, for example, and raised crosswalks.
And Holly, can you speak? You had a conversation with me about the travel lane versus the then gravel shoulder or the curb gutter. Is it possible to stay with the 10.5 travel lane and just also recognize that there's that gutter as well that extends it?
So this is their understanding of the 10 and a half foot travel lane was as you described, which is the pavement width. The gutter pan is right next to the asphalt. We do not drive our equipment in the gutter pan, and we try not to put our plows right up against the curb and damage it. So that 1 foot gutter pan is not really a consideration towards their operations. They wouldn't purposefully use that. It's dedicated for stormwater in the summer and kind of a ice snow floor in the winter.
Thanks, Holly. Councilman Trevor, do you have a question?
Yeah, what's the current travel lane width there?
This is a really informal and undefined street. The right of way narrows so frequently, so it varies throughout this corridor. I don't have that answer offhand.
Yeah, I was just looking at the GIS and it looked like there are spots that are 20 feet wide of pavement right now, so even less than the 10 and a half that we were specifying here.
One of the challenges they had was the curb to curb restriction. We have many streets where we have more narrow lanes, 11 feet, 10 and a half in our downtown, for example. All of those scenarios are also provided with parking on either side. So there's kind of an area that they're able to cheat. When you have curb on either side of the travel lane, that opportunity to cheat is gone. And so if you have a shoulder, that's another opportunity where they're able to cheat off the road a bit.
Thanks.
Continue. There you go.
Okay. And then the other direction that we would like your consideration on is the two directives of you doing a 10-foot shared use path on the south side of Cedar in conjunction with minimizing to the possible extent the removal of sidewalk. I believe Madam President talked about this in the workshop, the weaving and the inconsistency. So our design engineer's recommendation was, so this is option 1, is to stick with that recommendation. Our design engineer recommends that we do a continuous, either multimodal path or a continuous sidewalk to keep that travel lane clarity there without having the weaving or am I on a bike path or am I in the street? Which way do I go? However, when we did look at this and reviewed the option of a 10-foot modal path on the south side, we did recognize that there were 7 to 9, I'd say really just in that main corridor, if it wasn't continued, it would be 7 power poles in the middle of the path. And then if we extended that to Division, there would be 2 additional power poles that are in front of the library. Since we did meet with the Vista, there is an option to underground, and they would work with us. They gave us a cost estimate about $200K to do the work as the right-of-way would be open. So we would open the trench, and during that time, they would lay the underground power lines to alleviate that. But that would come at an estimate of $200,000.
It's actually pretty cheap compared to what they charge other places.
Yeah, so that was kind of what those 2 options of continuing having the 10-foot path on the south side. That was kind of the information we wanted to bring you and consider. And then the third option is to have a sidewalk that's continuous across the south side.
Council members, any questions for staff at this time? I would also just point 2 things out. One, this is our big street project. We've been saving for a couple of years to get this done. But I guess my question would be, it's a lot of information to digest and maybe reflect back on where we were. I'm not sure. I defer to Holly of continuing this to the next meeting now that you've kind of gotten a bite of it, and taking action on it then, if that would be impactful to our ability to pull off the project. But any council discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Howard?
In our packet, you gave us some information on each of these 3 options, and there were some that had additional cost implications. Could you talk to those briefly?
Oh,
I think it was some redesign or.
Yes, so thank you. Yes, the redesign, the cost implications of option 1 and 2 has cost for redesign, because you would have to go about another $30,000 in going back to adjust for all the grades and the slopes along the south side to address the extension of the modal path. So there would be additional costs for the design to bring it to 90%.
And then my second question, does option 3 alleviate the power pole issue? Because
it does.
It does.
There are 2 that are just on the edge, but because that would be, they wouldn't be as impactful because it's only really about half a foot. So it's not in your main corridor of travel. I also, in the staff report, provided just some examples of what that would look like with a power pole in the middle of a pathway. And then also, in front of the library is a great example of power poles being on the edge of a sidewalk and how they mitigated around it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Trevor?
Yeah, those 2 power poles, they're already existing in the existing sidewalk, right? So it's not a change, it's how it already exists. If anything, we could maybe widen the sidewalk right there to alleviate that extra half a foot.
But it depends on the right-of-way boundary. Because
Oh,
the
sure.
sidewalk goes to the right-of-way boundary that you can only go towards the road.
Sure. Thanks.
Any other council discussion on this? Any preference on considerations?
Mr. Mayor, I'll offer mine. Again, being prudent with our dollars, I think option 3 would be, in my mind, the best use of our limited dollars.
I would concur.
You hate to see existing sidewalk get ripped out that's 10 years or 5 years old.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schreiber?
Yeah, I would agree with that, it's a hard pill to swallow to rip up brand new sidewalk that just got put down. The other consideration that I mean, I am a huge fan of multi-use paths, especially this time of year when that's the only thing that's consistently plowed. But one thing I've noticed about both the Dover Sandpoint path as well as the section of path along Pine Street is that they're both on the north side of the road. And I imagine that helps a lot with solar heating in the winter. That side of the street gets a lot more sun than the south side would. So if we were going to consider a multimodal path here, perhaps we could consider putting it on the north side of the street where there isn't a bunch of sidewalk that we would be ripping up, and we wouldn't run into this situation where we're going from path to sidewalk and then back to path and then back to sidewalk. So that's something that I think might be worth considering. Also, if we're running into budget restrictions on this, I would be open to the idea of designing for a multimodal path on the north side, but then leaving it unbuilt through this project. And then at a future date, when we're ready to build it all the way into downtown as one big project, do it then. Because currently there's no sidewalk east of this project on Cedar on the north side of the street. So you essentially have the less dense neighborhood getting great sidewalks, and then the more dense neighborhood that would be the pathway into our commercial district has nothing for the pedestrian. So it makes sense to me that we put the bike path on the north side of the street in the design, and then when we're ready to build that bike path all the way into town, we do the whole bike path rather than trying to put it as part of this project. That would be an even bigger cost savings. I did have one question. I recall from our workshop that one of the big drivers of this the cost of this project was the road base. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, so moving from 10.5-foot lanes to 12-foot lanes would be something like an extra, what, 10 to 20% cost of road base?
Specifically materials, yes, you'd see an increase to materials, and that's scalable. Of course, you couldn't scale that to a project because there's other considerations like labor and mob. So once you've got a contractor out there building 10-foot wide roadway, 2 feet wide doesn't add very much labor. So on the material cost,
Sure.
you'd see that savings.
So that seems like a good opportunity there. I know that our current equipment is designed for wider streets, but I think, equipment has a lifespan, and looking forward, it might be worth considering changing that standard rather than building permanent streets that are more costly to build and maintain in the future. Not to mention the stormwater implications of having 20% more impervious surface, the 20% more snow than we have to store in the wintertime. So I do think that there's value in keeping that 10.5-foot lane rather than going with 12-foot, just because that's what our current situation is.
Thank you, Councilman Schreiber.
Mr. Mayor?
Council
Go ahead.
ladies, I'll let you duke it out.
Okay. Okay,
You
I
go.
get to go, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna request, that our planning, that Bill Dean come up and speak to the 12 versus 10.5-foot lane from a planner's perspective as opposed to a streets perspective. Just speak to that as far as planning and
Yeah, and this is building deputy planning and
planner,
community
sorry.
development.
I knew you had a new title, it just
Deputy
wasn't
Planning
coming
and
to
Community Development Director, and the context and I guess the fabric of a 10-foot versus a 12.5, if you feel.
10.5.
Travel lane we're talking about?
travel lanes, 10.5 versus 12.
And this is
and
for which street? Cedar?
Cedar by the library to the park to Traverse.
Oh, no brainer. Sorry. I will give you some perspective from an urban planning perspective. We have a fabulous grid in Sandpoint. One of the things a grid pattern enables you to do is disperse the traffic, avoid any one intersection being overly impacted by traffic flow. For this particular section, the average daily trips are going to be a certain amount. A 10-foot travel lane versus a 12-foot travel lane, it's not going to be any impact from ability to move traffic back and forth. But from a comfort and experience of the urban fabric, a 10-foot travel lane is going to afford you a little bit more opportunity to have a more pedestrian-friendly approach to that roadway, simply by virtue of the speeds being reduced with a narrow travel lane and the opportunity for other things outside of paved space for vehicles. It's just that simple. You can't use the same analysis for every road. There's, things you have to consider for arterial roadways, there's things you have to consider for collector roadways. Just from an urban planning perspective, planners are always trying to push for narrower travel widths simply for the fact that it slows traffic down and provides that right of way for other things. So that's the short answer without really knowing much about this project.
Okay, I just want a different perspective. Yeah,
Okay,
thanks.
sorry, if that was bucking the trend. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add to that as a professional planner that the subconscious, we talked about this before on Ontario or Fifth Ave, the wider the lanes, subconsciously you're going to feel like it's designed to go faster. Not that you can get too much speed up on this 4-block section, but there's
Oh,
that.
you could,
You'd be
Mr.
surprised.
Mayor, right, if I may. Yeah.
Councilwoman Duquette?
Thanks for that, Bill, because 10.5 is what we asked for. And it seems like everything we worked on and asked for is being changed. We didn't know about the power poles. And I also had suggested, in my opinion, I would give up the sidewalk on the north side to have money to avoid the trees as we will face more expense. And I like the idea of putting the multimodal on the north side at some point instead. There's also a lot of, I just walked down there again yesterday, culverts past those trees. There's little dips and culverts, and to make that wider, you're gonna have to cover all of that, level the ground up, between the 1565 where the trees are and the new development down there, there's on the south side. There's culverts.
Yeah. And
Unlevel
Councilwoman Duquette,
ground.
they don't, that's one of the benefits is they don't drain really well. So this project will get the water all flowing to hopefully a treated bioswale or something that's going to help that. But I hear you. Council members, do you want to digest this further, think about it for another 2 weeks and get back? Or do you feel like you want to give staff direction? I do have one question on Kyle's suggestion, Holly. I mean, if we're going to design the pathway and not build it, is that design component going to be a significant cost? Because if it's just going to sit on a shelf, I'd prefer to put that towards asphalt somewhere else. And maybe you can't answer that right now, sorry.
So if we pulled out the sidewalk from the north, you'd absolutely see savings in construction. We do have a complete design policy where if we reconstruct a road, we provide pedestrian connectivity on both sides. We also have a sidewalk detail that provides if we reconstruct a road, we put sidewalk on both sides. So it'd be a deviation from our standard, but cost savings.
So maybe if we're designing it, we meet the intent, the spirit of the code, we just don't have the money to build it. We have higher priorities.
I'd also have to look, I have concerns that there might be ADA and ProAg requirements that we wouldn't be meeting.
Okay. I personally like the idea of the path on the north.
Yeah, I do too.
Ripping up that sidewalk seems crazy.
There is existing sidewalk on the north side. There's a development, the northeast side has existing sidewalk with some nice trees that were planted. One other challenge we'll have if we move to the Maltese path to the north side, we'll have some more grade work and some challenges on the properties to the west. There's some topography challenges over there, so.
The whole road has topography challenges.
Yes, absolutely. There's, in particular, there's a willow tree on the corner, and we weren't super concerned with putting a sidewalk there. A 10-foot path might have a different outcome. But just to your point that when we were looking at this, back in March, we were looking at this when we started the project with our city standards. And as we're deviating from those standards, there were a lot of unknowns. And that's why we're coming back to you just to make sure that you've got all of those considerations prior to changing from the sidewalk on both sides of the street scenario and changing our lane widths as well.
Yeah, and I just emphasize to council, just keep in mind the process, whatever, if you decide tonight, we then go into design, it gets very expensive. And if you have second thoughts down the road, it compounds the expense because then we have to go back and change. So hope you feel comfortable with what you're doing and we'll get it done.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schreiber.
I did want to give an update from the urban forestry on this. We did discuss it and had an awesome presentation with a cool poll. It wasn't an official vote on a recommendation to bring to council, but it was a poll, and there was unanimous agreement that silver maple does meet the definition of a heritage tree. We haven't updated our code to with that definition yet, but I did want to pass that information on and echo Councilwoman Duquette's desire to work around that tree with some sort of like a lateral shift combined with a speed hump or something to protect it.
Yeah, the tree poses some other challenges, and Holly and Rachel are trying to get a arborist to give us clarity, but keep in mind that there's at least an 8-foot trench that gets dug right through its root, its drip zone for the water line, and we don't know, and talking to Holly, arborists don't know what that does to a tree. It's probably not good for it.
Well, we're gonna
But
find out.
no, it's just, yeah, we're gonna find out. Yep.
Because they sliced all those roots, right?
There's all sorts of ways that contractors could get around that.
Yeah. No. Anyways,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Howard?
So I'd like to propose a motion that we delay any final decisions on this for 2 weeks so that the council can really think through all of the good discussion. I think it's prudent before we just jump in. I personally would like more time with Holly and Rachel to sit down and discuss, okay, if we did something on the north side with the multimodal, what are the real implications of that? It's quite unclear to me today. I love the idea, but I just don't know if it's going to come with additional issues. And so I would like to make a motion that we kind of table this for tonight and bring it up in 2 weeks. And
Motion by Howard to table to 12/17/25, sorry.
I'll second.
Second by
There's
Spiro.
discussion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Our next meeting, 12/17, I believe.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so that's the meeting you want to, okay.
Yes, 12.
Because then you guys will be.
Yeah, you can meet with staff, yeah.
And then so thinking of keeping the 10.5 foot width and saving the maple tree.
I would encourage you all to visit with staff.
I have.
They're available
They're not gonna.
between
want
now and the
that.
17th, and we can take this item back up then.
Okay.
I'll second that motion if it hasn't been
It has
seconded.
been seconded.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just had one point to make. I think that the Bike Ped Committee spent a lot of time on this several months ago, but I would have to go back and read all the notes. That might be appropriate to sort of put that into the packet for next time. And I'll communicate with them and I'll communicate with
be good.
Haley so we know what they had to say too.
Excellent. So be a roll call vote.
Counselor Spiro,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Howard,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are moving right along under new business. Item 8, under new business is acknowledgement and acceptance of Bonner County canvass of the results of 2025 general election.
We still have something
That's
else.
neat.
Student to Idaho Code, Section 5412, within 10 days following the election. Purpose of canvassing the results. Upon receipt of tabulation of votes prepared by the election judge and clerks and canvasses, as provided, the results of both shall be entered into the minutes of the city council proceedings. Elections results are determined as follows. In the case of a single office be filled, such as mayor, the candidate with the highest number of votes shall be declared elected. In the case where more than one office to be filled, such as our city council, those candidates who receive the highest number of votes equal to the number of available seats shall be declared elected. On November 4th, 2025, an election for 3 city council seats currently held by Joel Spiro, Justin Dick, and Rick Howarth were up for election with 4 candidates on the ballot. As also on the ballot was the question of voters on the wastewater treatment plant revenue bond. I will now state for the record the tabulation of votes prepared by the election judge and clerks and the canvass as accepted and provided by Bonner County Commissioners. Joel Spiro, 1,398 votes. Joe Tate, 1,216 votes. Joshua Torres, 1,091 votes. Rick Howarth, 1,073 votes. As reported, Joel Spiro, Joe Tate, and Joshua Torres received the most votes and have been elected to a 4-year term on the city council. They're scheduled to be sworn in and seated next month during the council's regular meeting on January 7, 2026. On the revenue bond question, this measure passed with over 89% of those voting in favor of issuing up to $130 million in revenue bonds for the proposed provided by City Ordinance 1430, where council called for a special municipal revenue bond election for the voters to decide on the proposition of using bonds to finance the design, acquisition, and construction of improvements to the city's wastewater system facilities. The canvass reflected 1,749 voting in favor and 216 voted against. Does council have any questions? I will entertain a motion to acknowledge and accept the Bonner County's canvass of the results of the Sandpoint's November 4th, 2025 election per Idaho Code Section 5412.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Shriver, second by Rule. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Duquette?
Yes.
Counselor Spiro?
Yes.
Counselor Dick?
Yes.
Counselor Shriver?
Yes.
Counselor Rule?
Yes.
Counselor Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
Thank you. For the final item on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to convene an executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206 1B and F to consider evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, to communicate with legal counsel on the public agency, to discuss the legal ramifications and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated, but imminently likely to be litigated as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 Idaho Code. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Spiro, second by Dick. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Howard?
Yes.
Counselor Spiro?
Yes.
Counselor Dick?
Yes.
Counselor Rule?
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber?
Yes.
Counselor Duquette?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
At this time, I would ask everyone not participating in the session to please exit the room, and the recording will now end. Good night, and thank you for everyone who attended this evening. Executive session will be held upstairs.
It was a